The morning doesn't arrive so much as seep in, like cold water into worn straw. It has no trumpet, no sunbeam, no ceremony. It filters through the holes in the roof, not enough to be seen, only felt. A change in the air, the weight of breath that no longer steams, the subtle silence that replaces the muttering night. You are already awake, though you do not remember the moment you left sleep behind. Perhaps you never truly entered it, not with the wind threading through the thatch, not with the damp pressing against your back, not with your body arranged like a question no one has ever answered comfortably. You lie still for a long while, in that aching middle between dreams and obligations. The mat beneath you is only technically a mat. It is straw thinned to memory, flattened by years of repetition, softened by mold, made uneven by your own shape. One side always sags, and you always lie on that side, as though the unevenness matches the bend in your bones. You pull the rough blanket closer, not for warmth, but for ritual. It smells of fire and old sweat. It smells of your brother, who coughed in it last week. It smells of the seasons that no longer change much. The roof sighs above you. A drop forms slowly, gathers its courage, and lands without permission just beside your neck. The water is not cold enough to hurt, only to remind. You shift slightly, not to avoid the drip, it will find you anyway, but to acknowledge it, the way you nod to a neighbor whose name you've forgotten. A soft courtesy in the face of persistent irritation. Somewhere in the dark edge of the room, someone snores and then stops. The air rearranges itself in their absence. You can hear the soft rustle of someone scratching, a shuffle, a muttered curse that doesn't quite become a word. You do not need to open your eyes to know who it is. The same shapes, the same size, every morning like the last, braided together like rice stalks before the harvest that rarely feeds you enough. You sit up slowly, every movement like the uncoiling of an old rope. Your back speaks first, then your knees, then the strange tightness behind your left shoulder blade that you've stopped trying to name. You are not old. You are not young. You are bent in the exact way the world has demanded you be. The room is more shadow than space. Only one paper wall holds the gray outside at bay, and it has long since learned the art of surrender. Light bleeds through in the shape of the branches beyond, crooked silhouettes that move when the wind forgets itself. You wrap your robe around you. The weave is coarse and familiar. It hugs none of your curves, accommodates none of your comfort. But it belongs to you, or at least, you belong to it. You shuffle toward the door without lifting your feet. The floor greets you with every creak it knows. The rice paper on the sliding panel is torn in one corner, like a whisper someone tried to patch with hope. You do not bother fixing it again. The mice have made their case clear. As you slide the door open, the cold steps in like it was waiting. Not fierce, not angry, just inevitable. Like the memory of an old shame that comes with quiet mornings. You breathe out, and your breath folds around you, a faint ghost of warmth already lost. The yard is still, except for the goat. The goat always watches. It does not blink often. It does not forget. You nod at it, not as a greeting but an acknowledgement. You do not trust it. It probably knows too much. The ground is half-frozen mud. It looks like earth, but it behaves like betrayal. Your foot sinks a little with each step, then suctions out with a sound like an apology. You've long since given up trying to keep your feet dry. You step carefully only to avoid the sharp stones you know are waiting under the sludge, like quiet punishments. The air smells like wet bark, damp ashes, and yesterday's failure. Somewhere behind you, someone sneezes. A child, perhaps, or your uncle, or the neighbor who sometimes sleeps against your wall when the wind changes direction. It doesn't matter. The sneeze is as routine as the rooster who no longer bothers to crow. You suspect even he is tired of the cycle. The fire pit is reluctant. It was never a fan of mornings. You poke at the cold ashes with a stick that used to be part of something noble, a tool, a roof beam, a tree. Now it is your conversation with warmth. The coals underneath are sullen. You coax them like a parent to a stubborn child, gently at first, then with growing impatience. You blow on them. Your breath stings your lips, already chapped. Your fingers shake a little, not from fear, but from memory. The cold remembers where to hurt you best. A spark, a sigh, a flicker. You feed it twigs, bits of yesterday's broom, a sliver of hope. The fire accepts your offering like a priest listening to confession, half-heartedly, but with finality. Your stomach murmurs, not with hunger. Hunger is too grand a word, but with awareness. You are empty, and the emptiness is stretching. You pull a pot from beneath the lean-to. It is colder than the ground. You fill it from the barrel, where water has gathered from the roof's indecision. It tastes like wood and moss and old arguments, but it is water, and it is yours. For now. Inside, someone is stirring millet with the slow rhythm of resignation. You can hear it through the wall, the soft scrape of wood against clay, the sigh between stirs. It is your cousin, or your mother, or the girl who came last spring and never left. You will know when you see the hands. You sit on the low stool with one leg shorter than the others. It rocks slightly. You do not fix it. Its imbalance feels honest. A breeze cuts across your neck. You do not flinch. It is only the house breathing. A rooster crows, belated, mocking. You smirk, barely. The goat twitches its ear. You reach for the rice, the bits left from the night before. You chew slowly, not to savor, but to delay the next part of the day. Work waits, fields that drown, paths that crack, roofs that never stay mended. And people, always people, needing, talking, asking without asking. The morning has arrived in full now. The light is no warmer, the cold no kinder. But it has begun. And you, wrapped in the same robe, with the same ache, with the same breath drawn deep and slow, are already inside it. The drip behind you finds another rhythm. The wind shifts just enough to rattle the walls. And somewhere in the distance, a crow reminds you that even scavengers sing. The smoke from the morning fire has folded itself into the beams again, curling lazily upward, tracing the contours of a ceiling that doesn't keep the cold out. It drifts like memory, gray, gentle, always returning to places it isn't wanted. You sit in the space where light is a rumor, and warmth is just something the goat pretends to have. The robe, that threadbare second skin of yours, clings damply to your back, already beginning its daily betrayal. It scratches, but not the kind of scratch that demands a response. No, this is the lingering kind, the kind that hovers just beneath the surface, not sharp enough to scream, not soft enough to ignore. It lives in the seams, in the creases that never smooth out, in the places where sweat has dried and been resurrected, again and again, like some quiet curse whispered through linen. The robe was your father's, and maybe his before that. No one remembers anymore. The thread remembers, though, and it doesn't forgive. You shift, and the sleeve slides roughly along your forearm, brushing the tender spot where your skin always peels in winter. You wince without making a sound. The itch has become part of you now, like hunger, like cold, like the damp air that wraps itself around your ankles before dawn and doesn't leave until the sun has nearly given up. Even when you're still, the robe whispers across your body in small, nagging ways, like a companion who knows exactly how to make you miserable without ever raising their voice. You stand slowly, careful not to wake the others, not out of kindness, but because the morning belongs to no one yet, and you would rather not share it. The floor is colder than it should be, like it's storing secrets from the night. One step and then another, your heels cracking faintly beneath the weight of old calluses and older silence. The robe shifts with you, brushing past your calves, dragging slightly where the hem has frayed and collected the memory of every muddy floorboard you've ever stepped across. Outside, the sky is pale and indifferent. The trees are still, but not asleep. They've seen too many winters to be surprised anymore. A breeze moves without hurry, carrying with it the smell of firewood too damp to burn clean, and the faint iron tang of distant water. You pull the robe tighter across your chest. It resists slightly, then folds into place, as though mocking your attempts at comfort. You crouch near the fire pit again, though the coals are no longer your concern. You are not cold enough to justify their light, and too cold to ignore what your fingers have started doing, curling in slightly, almost shy, trying to hide from the air. You rub them together beneath the robe's sleeves, and the fabric grates against your knuckles like a gentle reprimand. It is always like this, a soft quarrel between your skin and what you must wear. Someone coughs behind the thin wall, not close, not far, just there, like mildew in the corners, like the rat beneath the floor who waits until dusk to show his confidence. The robe brushes your neck again as you move to stand, and this time it feels colder, as though it's remembered that it too has suffered through the night, wrapped around a body that never quite warmed it. You wonder if fabric can get tired of being human's second skin, of being worn through, of always absorbing, never speaking. The sleeves hang too long now. You used to roll them up. Now, you just let them dangle, heavy with everything they've soaked in. There's a stain near your elbow, oil or broth or maybe just life. You've forgotten. No one comments. Everyone has their own constellation of stains. It is how you know one another, not by names, but by how each robe carries its weight. The goat watches again. Of course it does. It stands by the corner of the fence, chewing something that might be wood or might be regret. Its eyes are wet and judgmental. You turn slightly, as though pretending you weren't hoping for some understanding there. But goats are too wise for sympathy, and too bitter to lie. You carry a bucket. The handle digs into the thin part of your fingers. The robe slides off your shoulders just slightly, and you tug it back again, not because it helps, but because letting go feels worse. The itch is there now, around your ribs. A deeper one, less of a scratch, more of a presence. You press your arm against your side, as though trying to squeeze it out, but the robe just grins silently in thread. By the stream, the mist clings low. The water laughs quietly to itself, as if amused by how often humans must bend down and humble themselves before it. You crouch, and your knees crack like dry wood. The robe bunches beneath you. It was never meant to move like this. It was made for existing, not for motion, not for ambition. You dip the bucket, and the cold climbs your arm like an eager vine. You try not to shiver, but your teeth conspire against you. On the way back, the wind tugs at the edge of the robe, lifting it just enough to let cold fingers slide in. You walk faster. Not to outrun it, that's never worked. But to keep your mind from dwelling too long on the space between your skin and your protection. That thin, worn layer. That shroud of inherited discomfort. Back inside, steam rises from the cooking pot. Someone has started the millet. The smell is earthy and bland, but real. You sit near it, legs crossed, robe pulled in like a fortress with too many holes. The heat doesn't reach you. Not yet. The robe stays damp. It always takes its time deciding whether or not to believe in warmth. Someone shuffles past you. You don't look. You don't need to. Their robe brushes yours. The brief contact is dry and equally rough, like two stray dogs acknowledging each other's hunger before continuing down separate paths. There is a kind of comfort in the sameness of the suffering. Later, you will leave the house again. You'll walk through brush that pulls at the sleeves, through smoke that seeps into the seams. You'll sweat. You'll shiver. You'll scratch. You'll forget you're wearing the robe until you're reminded by a bramble or a breeze. It will never stop being there, and it will never truly help. You wonder what it must feel like to be warm from the inside out. Not the kind of warmth you chase with fire or movement, but the kind that makes cloth soft and mornings bearable. You have heard rumors, but they feel like lies, like songs sung by children who haven't yet known a wet winter. The robe doesn't believe in warmth either. It only knows how to endure. Even as the sun creeps reluctantly toward noon, even as the fire grows bolder and the air slightly less cruel, the robe continues its soft defiance. It clings in some places, sags in others. It smells like habit and defeat. It itches in a dozen familiar ways. And still, you wear it. Not because you want to, but because you wouldn't know who you were without it. The day stretches, and the robe stretches with it. Across your back, down your arms, under your knees as you kneel again and again. It absorbs. It chafes. It becomes the second skin you never asked for but can't remove. And when the night returns, quiet and vast, you will lie down again beneath the roof that lets in stars and rain alike. You will shift on your mat, scratch absent-mindedly at your side, tug the robe over your shoulder, and try once more not to dream of warmth, not to. The robe still clings to your arms, though you've stopped noticing the itch. It's part of you now, woven into your morning breath, your slow shuffle toward the hearth, your memory of every day that came before and will come again. The air smells like something between damp wood and fatigue, like old rice stuck to old iron. Your knees pop as you bend, not in protest, just in reminder. You're alive, technically. The hearth isn't warm, not yet. It sulks in the middle of the room like a disappointed ancestor, cold and waiting to be appeased. Charcoal from the night before sulks in a shallow pit, gray and quiet, holding the shape of heat, but not the presence. You crouch over it like a supplicant. There's no ceremony in this, but it feels like one anyway. Your fingers scratching at the kindling, your breath catching in your throat as you blow gently, lips tight, eyes squinting against the flake and dust of old ash, lifting lazily into your face. The coals glow faintly, then less faintly, then not at all. You blow again. There's a smell that comes with it. Not fire, not yet, but something smoky and stale and familiar, like the inside of a clay jar that's been left near the hearth too long. A kind of hollow warmth that suggests comfort, but never offers it. You cough quietly and lean back, rubbing your eye with a sleeve that smells like salt and mold and someone else's shoulder. Beside you, someone shifts on the floor, barely awake, barely bothered. A snort, a stretch, the rustle of straw and wool. You are not alone, though no one will speak yet. Words don't rise until the fire does. You press your palm to the side of the old pot. It's cold, of course. Condensation clings to its rim. You run a finger through it, dragging a slow line through your own reflection, smudging the face that doesn't need to be seen just yet. You lift the lid. Inside, a few thin grains of yesterday cling to the iron like ghosts that refuse to move on. You pour in water from the jug, lukewarm, slightly cloudy, carrying the scent of old wood and older clay. It hisses against the metal like a warning, then settles. The smoke comes before the heat, curling up around your knees, folding itself into your robe, your hair, the folds of your thoughts. It is not a clean smoke. It is not fragrant, not gentle, not romantic. It is damp and dense and cloying. It sticks in your throat and reminds you that the chimney was never quite finished. Or perhaps it was, and time simply unfinished it. You blink against the sting. Tears well up for reasons that have nothing to do with sorrow and everything to do with the angle of the breeze through the cracks in the wall. You stir what you can into the pot, some rice, not enough. A spoonful of miso, darker than it should be. A thin strip of something that was once green, now more memory than vegetable. It floats on the surface like a lazy swimmer. The water begins to tremble at the edges. Not boil, just suggest. Like so much in your life, it never commits fully to what it promises. The spoon is older than your youngest sibling. Its handle curves slightly from hands like yours, from mornings like this, from the long ache of repetition. You stir with a kind of reverence, though you wouldn't call it that. Just habit, just motion, just the understanding that if you don't move this spoon, if you don't watch this pot, if you don't lean into the smoke and accept its presence, then no one else will. And then the morning breaks wrong. The fire crackles in apology, or warning, or maybe just boredom. You shift your weight, and your foot finds the edge of a loose floorboard. A rat shifts underneath, startled by your intrusion. You both pretend the other doesn't exist. There's a quiet around you. Not silence. Never silence. But a quiet made of tiny things. Of breath. Of pots clicking softly as they settle into heat. Of someone scratching behind the wall. Of the wind's fingers tracing the same leak they traced last season. You become part of the stillness, the center of a slow, thick moment that cannot be hurried. The rice softens, not evenly. Some of it clumps, some of it dissolves. You stir gently, trying not to care. You know how it will taste. Like yesterday. Like ash and effort, and a promise that didn't quite land. A small bowl appears beside you, offered by a hand that doesn't need to say anything. You nod, though the other person is already gone. You ladle some of the gruel into the bowl. Steam coils upward, graceful and cruel. It warms your face for a second, then disappears like it was never meant to stay. You sip, you wince. Your teeth find something that crunches but shouldn't. You chew anyway. The warmth spreads down your throat like a slow sigh. It's not good. It's not bad. It's food. Probably. Others begin to move. The room shifts. Bodies stretch and joints click, and someone mutters something to no one in particular. You hand off another bowl. Another. The pot empties slowly, with the reluctant rhythm of a burden shared too often. You scrape the bottom with a rough cloth when it's done. Not to clean it. Just to not waste what might still cling to the sides. The cloth smells like smoke now. Like you. Like everything. You wipe your nose on your sleeve. It leaves a mark. So does everything. Outside, the light has changed. Less gray, more indigo. The day is beginning to consider itself. The fire settles into coals again. Its brief dance finished, its mood subdued. The pot cools in the corner. The bowls are left where they were emptied. No one says thank you. No one needs to. The smoke still lingers, clinging to your hair, your robe, your thoughts. You smell like the hearth. You always will. The flavor of the morning has been swallowed, its texture still on your tongue. You'll carry it with you, quiet and bitter and necessary. You rise. Your knees complain again. You don't. The coals pulse softly as you pass, warm but unwilling to share. And somewhere behind you, the pot sighs as it cracks. Just a little. Just enough. The taste remains in your mouth as you step into the next task, and the smoke curls behind you like a memory that doesn't want to be left alone. The fire gives up long before your body does. Smoke lingers behind in your hair and the folds of your sleeves, curling around your skin like a promise that never came true. Your breath still carries the faint taste of ash, and somewhere behind you, the old pot continues to simmer with yesterday's flavor. You don't turn to look. There's no need. That rhythm belongs to someone else now, someone crouched in your place, blowing carefully at embers, eyes narrowed, shoulders hunched. The morning slips past like steam through a cracked lid, and already your hands are reaching for the yolk. It's heavier than it was the day before, though you know that's just the weight of knowing what lies ahead. The same path, the same buckets, the same stiff walk, where every step answers a question your body never wanted to ask. The wooden pole creaks against your shoulder, familiar and disinterested, and the ropes dangle loose and empty, soon to be filled with the cold weight of necessity. The ground beneath your feet is still wet from the night's quiet rain, not the kind that soaks through roofs or sings on thatched eaves. No, this one was patient, gentle, relentless in its own way. It seeped into the soil and stayed there, waiting. Now it answers each footfall with a soft, muffled squelch that makes your toes curl instinctively against the rough inner seams of your sandals. The straw has worn thin in all the wrong places. A single pebble makes itself known with every step, poking just beneath the arch of your right foot, a quiet, petty rebellion that reminds you how long the walk will be. The path curves through low fields and tall grasses, the kind that bend easily in the wind, but never seem to stay down, like memories or debt. It stretches out like it always has, narrow and uneven, edged by stones that shift just enough to unsettle your balance when you forget to watch your step. You don't forget. Not anymore. The rhythm is slow, the same way one might chew on a thought too large to swallow. Your knees ache with it. Your back knows each incline like a lullaby made of bone and regret. There is no sound that wants to be heard, just the soft brushing of reed against robe, the occasional snap of something brittle beneath your heel, and the sigh of the wind dragging its fingertips across the landscape. Sometimes a bird calls out from the trees, high and thin, as though surprised to still be alive. You don't look up. The sky offers no answers, only a gray ceiling that seems unsure whether it wants to break open or stay silent. Behind a low rise, the village begins to disappear, one roof at a time, one muddy wall at a time, until it no longer exists in front of you. It becomes part of the weight pressing down on your shoulders instead, a pressure that travels with you, invisible but constant. You pass the old shrine where offerings used to be left. Rice, coins, small folded prayers. Nothing's there now. Just a damp platform and the faint outline of soot where a candle burned too long. You step around it without pausing. The buckets swing a little with each step, empty but not light. Their insides are dark and stained, their edges rough with time. One has a crack that leaks only when it's full, a reminder that nothing ever holds what it should for long. You've meant to fix it for 3 seasons now, but fixing requires something you've never had quite enough of. Time, tools, attention, or perhaps just the illusion that it might actually help. Your arms grow tired before they should. The slope ahead is shallow, but your legs protest like it's a climb. You think of the stream as it exists in your mind, a ribbon of motion, soft and cool and clean. But the truth never quite matches. The water is slow, sometimes brown, always cold. It lives between banks that smell of moss and regret, where frogs sit too still and insects hover like secrets with wings. It takes longer than it should to reach it. It always does. When you arrive, the edge is muddier than usual. Your toes sink slightly as you crouch, knees cracking, fingers stiff as they untie the cords. You lean forward, balancing carefully, and let one bucket dip in. The water resists at first, then folds around the rim with a sigh. It gurgles up to meet the inside of the pail with the sound of old breath. Not fresh, not welcoming, but resigned. The second bucket is less willing, snagging on a root, tilting awkwardly. You don't bother correcting it, as long as it fills. The cold bites your knuckles as you pull them out. The weight doubles instantly, sloshing unevenly, slapping against the sides as you lift the yoke onto your shoulders once more. The wet wood leaves its memory on your skin, soaking through cloth and into bone. You straighten slowly. You breathe. The walk back is longer. It always is. Your steps become shorter, the rhythm broken by the need to balance. One drop escapes with every movement, carving a slow trail down the outside of the bucket like a falling thought. A waste, maybe, but one you can't prevent. The leak in the left pail begins to whisper again, a quiet trickle that won't be noticed until the floor is wet and the fire is already dying. You keep going. There's no other choice. You've lived your life inside choices like this, the kind where every answer is the same, just dressed in different discomforts. As you crest the rise again, the village returns. Not suddenly, but in pieces. A roofline here, a faint curl of smoke there, the low bark of a dog who never likes being surprised. You hear it before you see it. The familiar cough of your neighbor as he stirs the coals in his own damp hearth. The sound is as much a part of the morning as your own breath now. You do not acknowledge it. It does not need to be acknowledged. It simply is. The same children dart across the edge of your vision, feet bare and quick, mouths full of too much noise and too little food. One of them shouts something, and another laughs. You don't catch the words, and even if you had, they wouldn't be yours to answer. The buckets sway. Your knees tighten. You keep walking. Back at the house, the floor greets your return with a groan, old planks and damp straw complaining together. You lower the yoke slowly, letting the buckets rest without spilling. The leak has left its mark, a small trail of evidence that will need to be wiped before anyone else sees it. You will do that later. Maybe. For now, your shoulders throb with the memory of distance. Your palms carry the shape of the rope. The scent of algae and wood lingers on your sleeves. You stand still for a moment, caught in the pause between one task and the next. The world presses in around you again, the sound of someone stirring behind the curtain, the faint clatter of a bowl being placed too hard, the sigh of fabric shifting against skin. You are back, and there is more to do. But for a moment, just one, you allow yourself stillness. The water waits in its buckets. The fire waits to be fed. The morning waits to turn into something else. And somewhere beyond the walls, beyond the roofs and the fields and the cracked stone path, the stream continues on without you. Soft, slow, and utterly indifferent. The buckets rest behind you now, dripping softly into silence, their work done for the moment. But the ache they left in your arms lingers like an aftertaste. Low, dull, familiar. The damp of the morning hasn't left your robe, only rearranged itself into new patterns, soaking through threads that gave up resisting seasons ago. You pause just long enough to let your shoulders slump forward, a gentle rebellion, before lifting the hoe from where it leans by the door, its handle smoothed by so many hands that yours fits without trying. There is no announcement to the day's labor. It simply continues from where it left off. One breath into the next. One footstep into the mud. One sigh shared between you and the earth. You step out, and the yard squelches beneath your heel, unwilling to let go. The path you walk is not a path, not really, just the route most taken, worn down by years of barefoot decisions. The ground here remembers more than people do. Each patch of trampled grass, each sunken print, each stone half buried in the sludge. They know you. They know your weight, your limp, your hesitations. You never truly leave them. You only tread upon them again. Beyond the low fence made from warped bamboo and borrowed time lies the field, yours, or at least it behaves like it might be. No one else will tend it today. That makes it yours enough. The field does not greet you. It waits, expectant, damp. Your first step in is the worst, a wet, sucking pull that tries to claim your foot as its own. The second is easier, not because the mud is kinder, but because by then, you've already surrendered. You stop noticing how much seeps in around the edges of your sandal. You stop counting the stones that jab up between your toes. You just move, the way a tired thought moves through your mind, slowly, without spark. The soil is heavier than it should be. The rain has made sure of that. It clings like a needy child, wrapping itself around your ankles, insisting you stay just a moment longer. You don't argue. You only drag one foot in front of the other, the hoe balanced over your shoulder like a question you've forgotten how to ask. Somewhere behind you, someone sneezes, twice, the second louder than the first. A neighbor, or a sibling, maybe even a distant cousin. You don't turn to look. They won't either. You all know how this works. Your first task is simple. It always is. Break the crust. Turn what's matted into what breathes. The hoe drops into place with a soft thud, followed by the squish of mud reluctantly parting. The scent rises immediately. Not clean, not fresh. It's a rich, tired smell. Earth that's been walked on too many times. Hay that's already known rot. Manure that reminds you of every animal you've ever thanked in silence and cursed aloud. You keep your face turned down as you work, not from shame, from habit. The sun is still low, but it finds its way through anyway, scattering off dew and making your eyes squint in defiance. A bead of sweat forms behind your ear, not earned yet, but already present, like a reminder of what's coming. You wipe it away with the crook of your arm, then return to the next patch of soil. The hoe sticks briefly, caught on a root or a stone, or the memory of one. You pull back harder than you mean to and stumble slightly, one foot slipping just enough to bring your knee dangerously close to the muck. You curse inside your mouth but don't say a word. There's no audience here, only the field. And it never laughs. Each row becomes a pattern, a ritual. Drop, pull, shift, step. The same movement 100 times over, with only the angle of your spine and the protest of your back to measure the hours. Somewhere near the edge, the compost pile waits like a collapsed ghost. Bits of last season's waste, turned and turned again, now barely distinguishable from the soil it's supposed to enrich. You add to it without ceremony, a fistful of chicken droppings from the coop, collected with a cracked wooden scoop and averted eyes. You always try not to breathe when you do this. You never succeed. The smell coats the inside of your nose like an apology you weren't ready to accept. There's a moment when the breeze shifts, only slightly, enough to carry with it the smell of someone else's labor, smoke from a cooking fire maybe, or the sharp tang of wet linen hung too close to dung. It drifts by, reminds you that others are awake, are moving, are enduring alongside you. It doesn't comfort you, exactly, but it holds you there, keeps you from drifting too far inward. A crow lands on the fence, just one, fat, unimpressed. It watches with the eyes of a creature that's seen more seasons than you'll ever live through. It pecks at a loose twig, then looks at you again. You stare back. It doesn't blink. The hoe finds something hard beneath the surface. You press down again. A bone, maybe. Or a tool someone lost long ago. You don't dig to find out. Some things in the soil are better left where they sank. By the time the sun has fully climbed, your arms are shaking. Not violently. Just enough to change the rhythm of your breath. You lean on the hoe, letting the handle dig into your palm, your wrist, your ribs. The sweat now runs down your back like a thread of cold regret, tracing your spine in deliberate increments. You let it. At some point, someone calls a name, not yours, not close, but loud enough to bounce off the walls of a nearby house. It cracks the air, then fades. You wait for another call. It doesn't come. The mud has found its way up to your knees, and you've stopped trying to brush it off. Your robe is stained in new places now, as if mapping your labor for someone who will never read it. Your fingers are red, swollen, edged in grime. Your lower back feels like it's been tied in a knot and left to soak. But still, there is one more row, so you move again. Slowly, 1 foot at a time. The hoe digs. The ground gives. The sky stays where it is, unbothered. You think briefly of stopping, just long enough to sit, to stretch, to pretend the work might end early today. But the thought passes like a shadow on water. No weight, no trace. You do not sit. Instead, you mark your progress not by how much is left, but by how little you must redo. The weeds you pulled yesterday have not grown back. Yet. The manure has not washed away. Yet. The tools, though splintered, have not broken. Yet. You finish the last row with a kind of tired grace, the kind that comes not from peace, but from sheer repetition. The field is not neat now, but it is worked, and that is enough. You lift the hoe once more, let it rest across your shoulders like a yoke, and begin the slow walk back toward the house. The mud holds you for a moment longer before letting go. The sun blinks down. The crow has flown off. You do not remember when. The doorway appears like a memory, familiar, unremarkable, there. You duck your head slightly to pass through, your knees groaning in sympathy. Someone shifts behind the curtain inside. You smell something cooking or burning. It's hard to tell the difference these days. You set the hoe down by the wall, where it waits to be picked up again tomorrow. You stretch your back and find that it doesn't quite straighten. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But for now, you are inside, and the mud stays out. Mostly. The footsteps never stop. They come as muffled thuds, as scuffed drags, as sharp taps of bare soles on tamped earth. They begin before the light properly wakes, before your own body has remembered what it means to move. They come from every direction, sometimes passing close enough to rattle the thin panel of your wall, sometimes far enough that only the shifting air tells you someone is out there, already pulling water, already hauling bundles of something too heavy for the hour. You lie still a little longer, wrapped in layers that smell faintly of ash and of someone else, someone who might have slept there last season or last decade. The scent has settled deep into the fibers, stubborn, warm, and tired, like everything else. There is no silence in a village like this, only quieter kinds of noise. The world doesn't stop for thought. It hums right through it. Through the narrow slats where the roof meets the wall, you hear someone clearing their throat with a sound that feels older than the person making it. A cough. 2. And then a long, slow exhale, like someone giving up on the day before it even begins. You know who it is. That neighbor who always chews too loudly, who never minds his own business, who keeps a hen that doesn't lay but still brags about the eggs he doesn't have. You don't need to see him. You've known his sounds longer than you've known your own reflection. You sit up, not because you're ready, but because you can't pretend you're not. The mat beneath you crackles with straw that never learned to stay flat. Your joints murmur their complaints. You don't answer them. Outside, someone is already pounding something, rice maybe, or laundry, or just the dust from a cloth that has lost its will to stay clean. The rhythm is uneven. A beat, a pause, a beat, then silence, then again. It sets the tempo for the village's waking life. You slide open the door with the care of someone who knows every creak will be heard. The paper screens catch the morning light, but do nothing to keep the cold out. The air greets you like a relative you didn't want to see, familiar, intrusive, persistent. Your breath joins the village chorus, a pale cloud that disappears before it can make its case. Somewhere close, a baby cries. Somewhere farther, a woman sings a note that isn't quite a song. Just one long tone, rising and falling, like a question left unanswered. Maybe she sings to herself, maybe to the pot she's stirring, maybe to the wind. You've done it too. Filled the empty spaces with your own sound so the silence doesn't win. The path outside your home isn't really a path. It's where feet have gone often enough to leave a suggestion in the dirt. You step onto it, and your toes feel the familiar coolness of mud still half asleep. Someone has walked through it already, their heel prints still wet. Probably the boy who lives 2 homes over, the one with the hands too big for his arms and a voice that squeaks like a cart axle. He greets no one. No one greets him. That's how it goes. You all see each other every day, faces you know better than your own. And yet, words are rationed like rice, carefully, sparingly, never more than necessary. Affection is measured in nods and shared labor, not syllables. Judgment, on the other hand, is free. You pass the old woman who sharpens sticks for no clear reason. She sits just beyond her threshold, half in shadow. Her lips pressed so tightly together you wonder if she's forgotten how to speak. Her eyes track you, slow and tired. She doesn't blink. You pretend not to see her. That's part of the ritual. She pretends not to see you. It's a quiet agreement. Across the way, the man with the broken foot walks like the earth is made of thorns. He limps, but never complains. Or maybe he does, just not in words. He lets his pot bang a little too hard against the well. He yanks the rope with a force that makes the pulley whine. That's his version of a shout. You understand it perfectly. In the distance, someone starts shouting. Not in anger, just volume. A name, repeated. Maybe a child who wandered too far. Maybe a pig. Maybe a bucket. The line between them blurs here. Everything is loud when you're afraid it's lost. The sound cuts through the village like a stick dragged along a fence, then stops. No answer. No one goes to help. No one needs to. If it's important, they'll call again. If it's not, the silence will answer for them. You reach the communal path near the fields, and already the air is thick with stories no one is telling out loud. The neighbor whose wife left last winter. The boy who was supposed to marry last spring but couldn't find the rice. The girl whose father was taken to settle a debt and hasn't returned. You don't speak of these things, but they live here, in the pauses between footsteps, in the eyes that dart away too quickly. There is no privacy in this place. Walls are too thin, doors too open, lives too intertwined. Everyone knows who is sick before the cough even echoes. Everyone knows who hasn't eaten when the chewing sounds don't come. Secrets are rare. But silence? Silence is common. It is the currency of endurance. You pass a child drawing in the dirt with a stick. His face is serious, the way children get when they think the world might actually bend to their will. He doesn't look up. He's drawn a house, or a mountain, or something with too many lines. Maybe he's seen both. Maybe he's seen neither. It doesn't matter. He draws to fill the moment. And then the moment is gone, because someone calls his name, softer this time, and he leaves the lines behind like everyone leaves something behind. Back near your home, a pot has tipped. You hear it roll. A metallic sound softened by soil. The woman who dropped it mutters something under her breath. Not quite a word, not quite a curse. Her baby has stopped crying. You wonder if it's sleeping or just watching, wide-eyed and confused by the noise that never ends. The wind stirs dust from the path and pushes it sideways across the world. It finds the corners of your robe. It stings your eyes gently. You do not wipe it away. You just let it happen. That's the rule here. Let it happen. Everything does eventually. Hunger, cold, noise, rain, grief. And then it passes, or stays. But you endure either way. Someone is laughing now. You're not sure why. It's a bright sound, too sharp for the morning. Two voices, one higher than the other. Maybe they're mocking someone. Maybe remembering something that didn't hurt at the time. The laugh fades quickly. Laughter always does. It doesn't belong here. Not really. But it visits sometimes, brief and bewildered. You pause in front of your door again and look out across the village. Smoke rises in crooked lines from two chimneys. A chicken clucks, offended by something only chickens understand. A broom sweeps at a doorway with a rhythm that sounds almost like music. Almost. Behind you, someone sighs. A neighbor, passing. You don't look. They don't stop. That's how it works. You return inside. The walls do not welcome you. They simply accept you back, the way the earth accepts your footprints, without care, without question. A floorboard creaks. The roof gives a lazy groan, as if stretching. Somewhere beneath the house, the rat scratches again. You wonder if it knows your name. You wonder if it would use it, even if it did. The sounds continue, the noises of survival. A village of voices that do not speak. A life shared without permission, without affection, without choice. You live inside it like a note inside a long, unfinished song. The light shifts on the paper walls. A spoon clinks in a bowl. A breath rises, not yours. And the moment, like the village, carries on. The broom still leans where you left it, its bristles splayed like tired fingers that have held too tightly for too long. It's not really a broom anymore, not in the way it once was. More memory than instrument now. Less tool, more obligation. The kind that stays near even after it stops helping. You reach for it anyway. The handle has a smoothness that didn't come from craftsmanship. It came from years of sweat and palms and grip and winter-stiff fingers curling around it like branches around a rock. It gives slightly as you lift it, like a spine too often bent. The lashings near the bristles are coming undone. You think about fixing them, but that thought drifts away like smoke. Noticeable, but gone too quickly to catch. It's always like this. The rake, the hoe, the bucket with its wooden slats that never quite seal, the knife with a blade so thin it curls inward at the edge like a dried leaf. None of them are new. None of them are whole. They were passed to you the way a cough is passed. Unwanted but familiar, inherited by proximity and breath. They were old when your father used them. Older still when he found them in a corner of the shed behind a box no one remembered building. You carry the hoe with both hands because the head wobbles at the joint, and if you swing it too carelessly, it'll spin like a broken fan and bruise your ankle instead of the soil. It has done so before. Twice. You still carry the little scar near your shin, a pale line like someone tried to draw a path out of your leg and gave up halfway through. The walk to the field is not long, but the tools make it feel longer. They clack against your thigh. They snag your robe. The bucket sloshes even when it's dry, as if haunted by the memory of water. You wonder, not for the first time, whether the tools resent you as much as you resent them. The field greets you with the silence of work not yet started. The dirt, too dry in one spot and too wet in another, looks up at you as if expecting something you no longer remember how to give. You stab the hoe into the soil. It meets a stone. You try again, and again. The stone moves, but not enough to matter. You switch to the rake, but its tines are bent like old teeth, and all it does is rearrange the problem. You pause, not because you're tired, not yet, but because the futility needs a moment to settle. Like tea leaves in the bottom of a chipped cup, waiting for meaning. From the edge of the field, the wind brings a sound, a groan. The wheelbarrow, the one with a wheel that isn't round, the one your neighbor refuses to fix because it still rolls. It does, just not forward. You pull the hoe again. This time the head comes loose entirely. It falls into the mud with the weight of disappointment, and the handle swings upward to mock your grip. You stare at it for a long moment, then bend down, slowly, carefully, knees cracking like thawing ice. The rope that once secured it is frayed now. It holds like an old promise, barely, bitterly. You knot it again, but your hands are clumsy with cold, and the knot turns into something more like a tangle. You leave it that way. It will hold for today, or it won't. Either way, the dirt doesn't care. You dig. It is not elegant. The blade sinks at an angle. The soil resists like a child pretending to be asleep. Your body knows the rhythm, even if the tool does not. Push, pull, shift, reset. Like dancing with a partner who steps on your feet but insists it's your fault. The sun has risen now, but it brings little warmth. Only glare. It finds every rough edge on your blade and throws it back at your eyes. The shadows under your robe feel colder in contrast, damp and stubborn. Sweat begins, but it stays close to the skin, never evaporates. You are wet and cold and hot and sore all at once. A recipe for rot. A clink, not your own, draws your eye. The woman in the next field over is fighting her own rake. She has tied a cloth to the end of it for some reason. Maybe to collect weeds. Maybe to trick herself into believing she's innovating. You catch her eye. She doesn't smile. Neither do you. But the silence between you is softer for a moment, like wool stretched thin but not yet torn. You switch tools. The shovel. Its handle has a split that pinches your skin if you hold it wrong. You hold it wrong. It pinches. You mutter. Not a curse. Not a word. Just the sound of someone who is tired of being surprised by the same pain. The shovel digs worse than the hoe. But it is heavier, and that means it feels more like work. And sometimes, feeling like you're working is all that matters. In the corner of the field, the scarecrow slumps. Its bamboo arms point nowhere. Its head is a bundle of straw wrapped in a cloth that was once a scarf. The birds ignore it completely. One has built a nest in its elbow. You think, not for the first time, that you understand the scarecrow better than anyone else. Upright, hollow, mildly useful, mostly ignored. You straighten and your back protests. Loudly, then softly, like it's embarrassed to complain. Your hands ache. Your fingers have gone slightly numb, but only in the inconvenient places. The mud has crept up your robes, kissed your knees, tried to steal your toes. The tools lie in the furrows like fallen soldiers. They will do this again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. And every time they will fight you just a little bit more. You wonder sometimes what a new tool would feel like. Sharpness, balance, smooth wood, unmarred by generations. You imagine a blade that doesn't bend, a rake that aligns with your hand like it was made just for it. The thought feels dangerous, luxurious. You dismiss it quickly. It has no place here. Back in the shed, the lean-to that leans too much, you place the tools carefully, not out of reverence, but out of habit. If you don't, they tangle. If they tangle, they break. If they break, there is no replacement. You treat them gently because there is no alternative. The shed smells of mildew and old regret. A spider has built a kingdom in one corner. You nod at it on your way out. It does not nod back. As you pass the threshold, a gust of wind nudges the door, and it creaks in protest. You understand the protest. You've made it yourself. Inside your home, your sibling stirs, not awake, not asleep. They turn and sigh, the sound like leaves dragging across a roof. You sit beside the hearth, though there is no fire. Just ash. Cold now, but still smelling of heat that used to be. You wipe your hands on your robe. The dirt does not come off. Your fingers still curl slightly, shaped by the tools even when they're not holding them. They will stay that way for hours, maybe longer. Outside, the wind lifts a corner of the thatch, and a beam groans. And the day continues, unfinished, uneven, quietly relentless. The shadows have shortened to almost nothing, and your breath, what little of it you manage to keep, is no longer visible in the air. That alone should feel like a kindness. But it doesn't. The sun, once welcomed through cracked shutters and crooked doorways, now stalks you across the yard. It clings to your back like an unwanted child, sticky and insistent, pulling at your patience. The cool silence of morning has long since evaporated, replaced by the quiet cruelty of heat. Dull, invisible, heavy. You wear it like another robe, one you cannot remove. The path is dust now. What was soft and damp beneath your sandals at dawn has turned to powder, and every step leaves behind a dry sigh from the earth. You don't hear the birds anymore. Perhaps they've taken shelter in the trees, laughing at your stubbornness from behind the leaves. Or perhaps they've learned not to sing when no one has energy to listen. Your neck burns first, a slow reddening, as if your skin is embarrassed for you, ashamed of your labor, of your need to exist in this kind of weather. You pull at your robe where it sticks to the curve of your spine, only to make room for sweat to find another route. It trickles in lines, carving their way beneath layers of linen that were never meant to feel like firewood. You blink against the glare. The light isn't bright. It's blinding in a more personal way. It doesn't illuminate the world so much as wash it out, bleaching every shape into sameness. Trees melt into hills, hills into huts. Even the sky has forgotten its color, swallowing blue in favor of an endless dull ache of pale fire. You squint not to see better, but to shield your thoughts from leaking out through your eyes. Someone nearby grunts, a neighbor maybe, or a sibling returned from a task that took too long. Their sound is hoarse and reluctant, like a sigh trapped behind a cough. No one speaks in the heat. Words feel indulgent. You save your breath for walking, for lifting, for not falling over. You move slower now, not by choice. No one chooses this pace. It's the speed of survival when movement punishes you more than standing still. Your knees ache from nothing in particular, only the burden of being attached to the rest of you. Your hands, red and dry, no longer bend as easily. Even your fingers seem to resent the effort of gripping. The fields shimmer in the distance. Not the shimmer of beauty, but of deception. The wavering promise of water that isn't there. The cruel illusion of a breeze that dies before it reaches your cheek. You know better than to hope. Hope costs more than you can afford. A cluster of insects buzzes past your ear. You flinch too late, brushing them away with the back of your wrist. They are drawn to your sweat, your slowness, your silence. They are the only creatures thriving right now, and they know it. The older ones once said the summer heat was a blessing. It burned away sickness. It encouraged the rice to grow. But they said that in the morning, when their joints hadn't yet swollen and their tempers hadn't yet shortened. Now those same elders sit in the shade of broken awnings, fanning themselves with wilted hands, muttering curses that sound like prayers. You do not join them. Not yet. The goat watches you from a crooked shadow near the fence. She hasn't moved much today. Her ears twitch occasionally, but that's more than you can say for most things. She knows something, or she always looks like she does. You meet her eyes for a moment, just long enough to feel judged, and then return to your task. Carrying the buckets now takes more time than it should. One is half full of weeds, the other half full of excuses. You forget which was which, and it hardly matters. The weeds will be back tomorrow, stronger for having survived today. You wish you could say the same for yourself. A bead of sweat slips from your temple and lands with a soft plip on your collarbone. It is the only sound you've heard clearly in minutes. There is a moment, brief but real, when you consider sitting down, right here, in the dirt, letting the heat press you flat until evening. But you remember how hard it is to stand again once you stop, and so you don't. Somewhere, a baby wails. Not your problem, but also very much your problem. Because every cry adds weight to your own silence, reminding you that life demands noise, even in this heat. You wish you had the strength to make a sound, any sound, but the only thing you offer is a shallow breath and a softer step. Your feet itch, not from insects, not from illness, just from wearing the same cloth wrappings for too long. But you won't change them now. That's a luxury reserved for nighttime, when the floorboards are cooler and the rats more forgiving. A breeze comes, for a second, maybe two, and you feel it. You really do. It brushes across the side of your neck, like a grandmother's knuckles, old and dry and oddly kind. You stop moving, just in case that moment decides to return. But it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. So you shift your grip on the hoe, the one with the splinter near the handle you've never gotten around to sanding. You avoid it with practiced fingers, though today your hand slips lower, and the wood bites you in a way that feels personal. You flinch. The The pain is small. The resentment is not. The dirt crumbles differently now. Too dry. Too stubborn. You press harder, and the blade of your tool sinks in sideways. Useless. You try again. This time it works, but only because you are angry and tired and afraid that if you stop, you'll forget how to start again. The sun has shifted. Not much, but enough that your shadow now trails in front of you instead of behind. It's a strange thing, watching your own shape lead the way. You wonder if it knows where you're going. You wonder if it cares. You stop again. Not for long. Just long enough to wipe your face, smear more dust into your eyebrows, and think about how much you miss the cold. You hated the cold when it was here, but you miss it now. The cold punished your fingers, yes, but it did so honestly. The heat, in contrast, is deceitful. It softens you, then cracks you. It lulls you into believing you can adapt, and then it scalds you for trying. A voice calls out from the neighboring field. It's your uncle's cousin's wife's brother, some tangle of relation that doesn't matter, except when you borrow things. He waves vaguely, then returns to whatever torment he's enduring. You nod back. Even that small motion makes your shoulders creak. And the day continues. The sweat hasn't stopped. It's just become part of you now. A second skin, a liquid confession. Your robe is soaked in the usual places. Underarms, lower back, behind the knees. You no longer care who notices. Everyone looks the same in this heat. Everyone glistens with the shared misery of too much sun and too few clouds. You find shade beneath a thatched overhang near the storage shed. It's not really shade, more of a dimming, but it's enough to trick your mind into thinking something has changed. You lean against the wall and let your eyelids droop, but not close. Closing them feels dangerous, like you might not open them again for hours, like you might sleep through the rest of the work and wake up to guilt. The air smells of straw and sweat and something that might once have been miso. Someone must be cooking nearby, or trying to. You listen for the clatter of pots, but all you hear is a soft rustling from beneath the floorboards. The rat again. Always the rat. Always busy. Always thriving. The light has shifted once more. A little softer now. Still harsh, but apologetic. The kind of heat that says it didn't mean to be so cruel, but won't actually stop. You step out from the shade and feel the sky press down again. Not as sharply, but enough. You keep going, because there's still water to carry, still weeds to pull, still hours to endure before the dusk wraps everything in tired forgiveness. The sweat hasn't stopped, but neither have you. And somewhere, just above the edge of your sight, the sun begins its slow retreat toward the mountains. You don't celebrate. You don't smile. You just breathe in, breathe out, and press forward, because that's all there is, for now. And far off, a cicada begins to sing. One long, drawn-out cry, like a kettle boiling with no one there to lift the lid. That sound lingers, then fades, and the heat, though softer now, still comes with a price. The heat has begun to lose its edge, but not its weight. It clings still, not with sharpness now, but with the stubborn insistence of something that refuses to leave just because it's no longer welcome. Your robe has dried in places, hardened in salt-crusted creases, while still damp along your spine. The sun lowers. Your shoulders sag with it. But the thirst only sharpens. It starts not as a thought, but as a sensation. A dull film behind the teeth, a tightness beneath the tongue, a soft complaint in the throat, too tired to make itself known aloud. You blink. You swallow. You wait. The gourd is heavier than you remember, which is a cruel trick of the body. It is not full. You know this. You remember the morning, the sound of ladles scraping the bottom of the bucket, the way the last few sips were portioned in silence. Everyone got less. Everyone said nothing. But now, in the stillness that follows heat, with the field behind you and the tasks momentarily quiet. The weight of the gourd presses against your side like an unspoken promise. You reach for it not with hope. Hope is too sharp, but with the quiet ache of someone who has waited long enough. The stopper creaks. It always does. Twisted bark and hardened thread, damp with memory. The smell rises first, faint, woody, slightly sour. Not unpleasant, just old. The way water smells when it's been stored inside something that has known many mouths and many suns. You tilt it, careful not to spill. Not because it might run over, but because the motion is ceremonial. A rhythm passed down, a gesture learned from the backs of others. You drink not all at once, but slowly. A pause between each swallow, a breath between each privilege. The first drop touches your tongue and disappears before your mind registers it. The second clings to the roof of your mouth, just long enough to remind you what it means to be human. The third rolls down your throat like mercy. It is not cold. It is not fresh. But it is yours. And that is more than most things. A breeze brushes your ankle, almost accidental. And for a moment, you imagine that it too has tasted the water, that it lingers out of thirst. You do not chase that thought. There is no need. The goat watches you again. She stands beneath the plum tree, which no longer offers fruit, but still pretends to. Her ears twitch. She blinks once. You hold her gaze a little longer this time, not in defiance, but in resignation. She knows. She always knows. But today, you do not care. The gourd is not empty yet, but it is nearly so. You consider, with a patience you did not used to have, whether to drink more, whether to save it, whether to share. The questions do not arrive as full thoughts, only as vague ripples, half-formed. You cap the gourd. The choice for now is to wait. From inside the house, someone coughs, short, repeated, the same way they coughed yesterday, and the day before. You listen, not because you are worried, but because you are used to it. The cough is part of the evening now, like the creak of the gate or the sigh of the windmill. A child's voice, soft, wordless, floats out behind the cough. Then silence. The kind that has been shaped by long days and longer routines. The kind of silence that asks nothing, offers nothing, and simply fills the space between acts of endurance. Your fingers curl around the gourd again, this time not to drink, but to remember. The wood is smooth from use, the rim worn down by time and teeth. It has been passed through too many hands. It has survived seasons when wells ran dry, and seasons when rain was too plentiful to be trusted. It carries those memories in its grain. Water is not just water, not here, not now. It is ritual. It is reprieve. It is an act of defiance against a day that tried its best to take everything. You carry the gourd back to its place near the doorway, beside the warped bamboo mat where sandals collect dust and resolve. You do not place it gently, but you do not drop it. It lands with a soft thud, enough to say, "I was here," but not loud enough to demand acknowledgement. You wipe your face with the sleeve of your robe, knowing it will leave behind a smear of earth, sweat, and probably ash from this morning's fire. But it is your face, and your robe, and your smear, so it is fine. From beyond the rice paddies, you hear the distant groan of a cart being pulled uphill. The wheels catch and protest in the dry ruts. The oxen snorts once, then falls quiet. Someone mutters, not close enough to hear, close enough to feel. You sit, not because the ground is comfortable, but because standing has lost its purpose for the moment. The earth beneath you is warm from the day's fire, and rough with the discarded seeds of something that never grew. You lean back, rest your elbows on your knees, and let your head droop forward. There's a dryness in the back of your throat that water cannot reach, a thirst that has nothing to do with liquid. It hums beneath your ribs. It waits in your jaw. You do not name it. You simply sit with it. Beside the door, The rat scurries. Or maybe it's a different rat now. They come and go, a lineage of tiny feet and hollow bellies. You hear them more than you see them, but you know they are never far. A rustling of leaves pulls your attention to the left. The plum tree again. The goat has wandered off. In her place, a single cicada begins its slow evening chant. It starts low, drawn out, almost mournful. You feel it in your spine before you recognize the sound. A pulse that matches your own. Uneven. Resigned. You shift your weight. The gourd bumps gently against your ankle. You think for a moment of drinking again. Just a sip. A swallow. A small return to something close to comfort. But you don't. The decision feels holy. From the corner of your eye, you notice the neighbor's lantern flicker to life. A tiny glow behind paper and wood, struggling against the dark. The light doesn't reach you, but the effort does. You lean your head against the door frame. The wood is cool now, almost damp. It smells of mildew and long-forgotten summers. You breathe it in as if it will nourish you. You wonder, not for the first time, what water tastes like to those who do not need it, who drink it out of habit, who spill it without apology. You wonder how it feels to reach for a cup without worry, to pour without measuring, to drink without thinking. And you know, even as you wonder, that you will never truly know. The gourd rests beside you, not empty, but not full either, like you. The sun has disappeared behind the roofline, taking with it the sharpest angles of the day. Shadows stretch out around your feet, long and uncertain. The air begins to shift, not cooler, but quieter, as if the sky itself is holding its breath. A beetle lands near your toe, then scuttles into a crack in the step. You watch it go without judgment. Your mouth is dry again, but you do not drink. Instead, you close your eyes, not to sleep, but to hold the moment still, to stretch it, gently, like cloth on a line. You imagine the next sip. Imagine it so clearly that it almost arrives, but not quite. The wind hums low, a murmur, a memory, and somewhere in the house behind you, someone whispers your name. You do not answer. You just listen, and the thirst waits with you, until the next sip, whenever that may be. The heat has stopped rising, not because it is cooling, but because it has arrived, fully, completely, and without mercy. The kind of heat that settles into your bones and then forgets to leave. The kind that doesn't burn so much as it presses down on you, quietly and insistently, like a thick blanket soaked in sweat and obligation. You sit in the dappled shade of the same tree that has seen more summers than you have. The bark is cracked, the roots curled into the dry earth like tired fists. The breeze, if it can still be called that, barely stirs the leaves above your head, and when it does, it only reminds you of how much it is not enough. Your knees ache as you fold them beneath you. It's a motion done 100 times before, and still it never becomes easy. Dirt clings to the backs of your legs, sweat glues your tunic to your spine, and the smell of your own labor, fermented by the sun, rises with you like steam from rice left too long on the fire. The bowl in your lap is warm from your hands, not the food. The food never had a chance to be hot. Inside the wooden bowl, a fistful of rice that looks like it was measured by someone counting grains instead of scoops. There is a piece of something pickled resting beside it. A strip of daikon, maybe, though it's hard to say anymore. It has the sour scent of vinegar and memory, and it folds between your fingers like wet paper. You do not sigh. Sighing takes air you'd rather keep. Instead, you pick up a single grain of rice that has clung to the rim of the bowl. It resists, dry and stubborn, until it comes free and sticks to your fingertip. You place it on your tongue and wait. It doesn't taste like much, just starch and silence. A sibling sits nearby, chewing slowly, methodically. Not out of reverence for the food, but because chewing makes it last longer. You watch their jaw move. You hear the scrape of teeth over something too dry to swallow whole. You see their eyes drift forward, not focusing on anything, just avoiding looking down, or around, or at you. You take a bite. The rice is not warm. It is not cold. It is simply there. Each grain separate but clumped, like people standing close in a field but unwilling to speak. The chew is soft in some places, hard in others. Your teeth find a bit of husk that should have been sifted out. You chew through it anyway. There is no seasoning. Salt is expensive. Miso is for when the harvest is good. Today is not that day. Today is a whisper of sustenance, enough to remind you what hunger isn't, without letting you forget what it is. You turn the strip of pickle between your fingers. Its surface glistens faintly, as if it remembers being part of a vegetable. You bite into it. It's sharp, not pleasantly. It puckers the sides of your mouth, presses vinegar into your gums. It stings in places you didn't know were sore, but it's flavor. And flavor is something. You chew, swallow. The sensation lingers longer than the food. A fly lands on your bowl. You wave it away gently. Not because you care about the bowl, but because the act feels like something you should do. There are rules to this rhythm. You eat. You don't talk. You keep the flies off the food, not because the food is sacred, but because it's yours. And there won't be more. The neighbor's child cries faintly through the wall of thin thatch nearby. A muffled shush follows. Someone else coughs. A rooster crows again, too late to be useful and too early to be forgiven. You glance at your bowl. It's already almost empty. How did it vanish so quickly? You don't remember lifting the last bite to your lips. You don't remember the act of chewing, only the faint aftertaste of disappointment and routine. You scrape the bottom with your fingers. A thin, sticky layer clings there, browned from the fire, stubborn. It tastes slightly burnt and slightly sweet. You savor it. You always do. It's the only part with personality. Your fingers are dirty. They were already dirty before the meal, and now they are dirty in a new way. You lick them slowly, not out of desire but duty. Waste nothing. Leave nothing. Even the grease from the daikon is worth keeping. It softens the cracked skin at the edge of your thumb. You pass the bowl to your sibling wordlessly. They take it and do the same. Not because they're still hungry, they were never full, but because that's what you do. You share what isn't yours to keep. The goat bleats behind the fence. It sounds accusatory, like it knows you fed it better yesterday, like it knows tomorrow you might forget again. The sun is higher now. You feel it behind your neck, pulsing like a silent threat. You try not to move. Moving means sweating. Sweating means thirst. Thirst means more work fetching water. And the well is far. You rest your bowl beside you. The wood is worn smooth on the outside, but the inside has a faint splinter where your nail caught it once. You trace it. Familiar. Like everything else. There's talk in the distance. A low murmur of voices. Someone's shouting, not in anger, just to be heard. The sound blends with the rustle of windless trees and the occasional buzz of something flying too close to your ear. You close your eyes for a moment. The inside of your eyelids is not dark. It is red, a hot red, the color of midday light trying to press through skin and bone. You open them again. It's better not to pretend. Your stomach doesn't ache. Not exactly. It's learned the shape of emptiness too well to complain. But there's a dull pull, a hollow awareness, the kind that makes your hands feel lighter than they should, your thoughts a little slower. Someone nearby sneezes. You hear them wipe their nose on their sleeve. Fabric against skin, rough and fast. The sibling rises. You follow, not because you want to, but because if you sit too long, standing hurts more. Your knees crack softly, a sound not of pain, but of history. You dust your hands on your thighs. It does nothing. The dust is part of you now. You carry the empty bowls toward the corner of the hut. They clack together softly, wooden mouths whispering secrets. You set them down. You step away. Outside, the air still waits, still heavy, still thick. The meal is over. It never really began. But it gave you just enough to keep standing, just enough to not lie down, just enough to reach for the hoe again, or the basket, or the child wandering too close to the ditch, just enough to keep moving, just enough to ache slowly instead of quickly. You wipe your mouth on the inside of your sleeve, leaving a faint mark that will join 1,000 others. No one will notice, least of all you. There will be dinner later. Maybe. If the rice stretches, if the vegetables hold, if the weather doesn't turn crueler. But for now, you return to the sun, the dust, the weight of the day. And behind you, the bowl waits quietly, holding nothing, but still somehow heavier than before. The scratch began before the meal ended. A soft twitch behind your knee, easy to ignore. Then the ridge of your forearm joined in, an ancient patch of skin that never truly healed. Another tug, this time at your side, under the folds of a sweat-damp robe. And so it begins. Not as an attack, but as a chorus. Software relentless. Familiar. You shift your weight where you sit, careful not to draw attention. Scratching is a private thing. Not because of shame, but because it never ends. One motion invites another, like feeding a stray dog that now knows where you live. So you resist. At first. But resistance has limits. The sun presses down on your back with the weight of an old regret. And the meal, if it can be called that, was dry and bitter, and now sits in your belly like wet wood. The warmth of digestion stirs something beneath your collarbone. A bite. A memory. A whisper with legs. You reach, slow and unhurried, as if to adjust your robe, and let a single nail rake against the place just above your shoulder blade. It's barely enough. It's never enough. The relief is brief and cruel, like rain that stops the moment your face turns skyward. Your skin is a battlefield long after the war has been forgotten, a tapestry of bites, scratches, welts, and the soft red lines of half-sleep torment. You remember the nights, the long ones, when you'd wake with blood under your nails, not from violence, not from rage, just from trying to make the itching stop. Some say it's the straw, dry and cracked from too many seasons of reuse. Others blame the fleas, which no longer need to hide because no one has the strength to chase them. A few insist it's the air, thick with sweat, dust, and the bitter oils of boiled roots. But you know better. The itch is not a pest. It is a condition. Of the body, yes, but also of the mind. It is the embodiment of unrest, of labor unfinished, of sleep never deep enough to forget your name. You walk toward the field again, because walking is what the day demands. Each step presses cloth to skin, damp against damp, friction against flesh. You tug at your sleeves. You shift your robe. Nothing helps. The breeze, when it comes, is a broken promise. It lifts your hair, but does not cool you. It swirls dust into your eyes, but spares your back from relief. Others walk beside you, the ones you live among but rarely speak to. Their eyes are tired, their mouths closed. Their hands twitch occasionally to scratch what must be scratched. But even that motion is done with the subtlety of confession. It is not polite to make your discomfort visible. Misery here is shared quietly. The child ahead of you is scratching openly, behind his knee, up his side, beneath the collar of a robe too large and too stained. He does not yet know restraint. His mother slaps his hand away with the same rhythm she uses to winnow rice. Habitual, thoughtless, necessary. He winces, but the itch does not. A neighbor clears his throat beside you. A low, phlegmy sound that seems to carry the weight of something unspoken. He doesn't look at you, but you feel the judgment in his silence. You shift again. Scratch again. This time at your hip. You do it through the cloth, as if distance will grant you dignity. Your hands are not clean, of course. They haven't been since the river 2 days ago, and even then, the water was thick with silt and the vague memory of fish long since eaten. Clean is a fiction. Like fairness or justice, the best you can hope for is not to smell like rot. You glance down. A small red patch is forming where you scratched earlier. Raised, angry, familiar. You think about the herb woman in the village, the one who sells leaves in little bundles, tied with thread that looks suspiciously like old hair. She offered you a remedy once, said to boil it into a tea or crush it into a paste. You tried both. The tea tasted like old bark and disappointment. The paste turned your skin green, but the itching stayed. You wonder if she ever used it on herself. The work continues. You bend, you pull, you carry. The tools in your hands leave splinters in your fingers, and the sweat from your brow slips down the bridge of your nose like a slow regret. And all the while, the itch pulses, not loud, not urgent, but steady, as if reminding you that comfort is a thing for other people. Once, years ago, you saw a noble pass through the village. He wore robes so clean they looked wet. His skin, pale and unmarked, shimmered in the morning sun. You wondered then what his itches must feel like, if he had any, or if the silk simply kept the pain away. Your own robe sags at the waist, held together with knots and hope. The fabric is thick with old sweat and new dust, and the collar rubs your neck raw. The itch there is constant, a ring of irritation that pulses with your heartbeat. You tell yourself you'll mend it tonight, but you won't. You never do. The afternoon deepens. Shadows stretch. The sun burns sideways now, like an insult hurled over a shoulder. The breeze thickens with the scent of livestock, of manure that has baked into the earth and risen again like steam. You breathe it in, not because you want to, but because it is the only air you have. At the edge of the field, a dog scratches itself furiously, hind leg thumping against its side like a drumbeat of surrender. You watch it, and for a moment, feel kinship. Then it yelps and runs, chased by a child with a stick and a laugh too sharp to be kind. Your fingers reach for your neck again. You press, hard this time, digging nails into skin as if to carve relief from the flesh itself. It feels good, for a heartbeat. Then it stings. Then it itches again. This is the rhythm. This is the loop. There is no end, only pause. And even the pause is temporary. Evening comes wrapped in the gold of a sun too proud to set quietly. Your shadow stretches long across the dirt path, thin and flickering like memory. You follow it toward home, toward rest that will not come, toward sleep that never stays. Inside, the air is worse, stale, trapped, alive with the movements of things you pretend not to hear. You settle into the corner where you always sleep, the straw mat pressed into the floor like an apology. You lower yourself onto it and immediately regret it. A poke in your ribs, a scratch at your thigh. Something scuttles away beneath you. You pretend it was nothing. The body next to you shifts. Another coughs. A rat scratches. The goat breathes heavily, just outside the thin wall, as if waiting for you to do something wrong. You close your eyes. The itch waits. It knows you're not done. You shift, scratch, pretend, and scratch again. And in that quiet, restless space between breath and sleep, between skin and straw, you wonder if peace is simply the absence of needing to scratch. If so, you have never known it. The night breathes slowly. A hush, a whisper, the faint brush of fabric against skin, and somewhere beneath it all, the itch, still there, still waiting, still yours. The air still holds the scent of scratching, not from your fingers, not even from the straw mat, but from the memories of it. Dry skin beneath old linen, crawling things in the seams of the night. You've stopped scratching for now, but the ghost of it follows, just behind the edge of thought, humming in the bones of your fingers. So you rise, though rise is not the right word. You shift out of one discomfort and into another. The pressure on your knees reminds you of the ground, the world, the weight of your name, the one nobody ever says, but everyone uses when they're dividing chores. And there are always chores. You cross the threshold, toes curled slightly against cold planks that never stay clean. The sandals you reach for are damp again, because they always are. And the thong rubs where yesterday's blister still aches, and today's blister has not yet formed. The door creaks because it must. The world outside waits without surprise. There's no announcement, no dramatic turn of fate, just the same slow unfolding of necessity. You pass the goat, who glances at you with the resigned wisdom of someone who knows all secrets and chooses silence. You step past a bucket that smells like yesterday's waste and the day before's too. It is not your task this morning. But it could be. It has been. It will be. You don't ask who assigned it. No one does. Some things in life don't require delegation. They cling to you by default, like a smell or a birthmark. You carry them not because you were told to, but because you noticed no one else had. Behind the shed, the pig squeals at nothing, or maybe at everything, or maybe just at you. You're not sure it matters. The rice stalks need thinning, but so do the leeks, and there's talk of a sick hen, and the elder's sandals need mending, and the monk's scrolls were damp last night, and someone said there's a tear in the roof of the storehouse, a tear that no one remembers making, but everyone remembers should not be there. You blink slowly. You do not nod. Nodding takes effort. Your hands find the hemp rope before your mind does. You twist it tight, tuck the edges, make it hold. You do not question if it will hold well. It will hold until it doesn't. Then someone will fix it again. And so it continues. There's a smell from the waste pit today, sharper than usual, like something sour crawled in and made itself comfortable. No one's gone to see yet. You know someone should. You look at the path. The weeds are low. Someone's walked it recently. You pretend not to notice. Instead, you pick up the wooden scoop and move to the well, where the water always tastes faintly of stone and something older than memory. The scoop leaks now, a thin thread down your wrist. You don't bother fixing it. It leaks in a way that says, "I'm not broken. I'm just tired." And you understand that language. A cough behind the next house. Dry. Persistent. Not yours to tend to. But your ears hold on to it anyway, the way they do all sounds. The creak of a door that doesn't belong to you. The sigh of the woman with the bent back, stirring something that isn't food, but passes for it. The child dragging a broom that's too big for his hands. Your work this morning involves the compost pile. It's not your least favorite. That's a category too crowded to rank properly. But this one asks less of your knees and more of your nose, and lately your knees have been louder than your pride. The compost is wet today, slimy. It sloshes with a sound that feels like failure. You mix it anyway. With a stick so splintered it leaves little bites in your palm. You'll wash the blood off later, or you won't. Either way, it will dry. Behind you, someone calls out, not your name, but something close enough. You glance, not because you want to answer, but because ignoring it takes more effort. They ask you to check on the chickens. You do, because it's easier than saying no. One of them is missing feathers. Not many. Just enough to feel like a metaphor. You toss her some rice husks, and she pecks without gratitude. You envy her simplicity. The sun is climbing now, and the warmth begins to settle into your shoulders. Not pleasant, just present, like a heavy cloak you didn't ask for. You pass a boy trying to pull weeds. He's young, or tired, or both. He looks at you with that open expression that hasn't learned how to hide behind silence. You nod, barely. That's all the comfort you can afford. He returns to the weeds. They win, slowly. Your stomach makes a sound that isn't quite hunger. It's more of a question, like it's forgotten the answer to fullness and is afraid to ask again. Someone walks past with a bundle of sticks tied haphazardly. You wonder where they're going. Then you realize it doesn't matter. You've carried bundles like that. You will again. You probably were supposed to today. You pretend not to remember. The neighbor's door slams. Not out of anger, just the wind, or the weight of habit. You breathe in through your mouth. The air is thick with damp smoke and something rotting sweetly, like old fruit or regret. You pick up the brush and sweep the temple path. It hasn't been swept in days, or hours, or maybe it was done just yesterday. The dust never remembers. As you move, you notice a crack in the wall. Tiny, growing. No one will fix it. Not soon. It will stretch, slowly, like everything does. The old man sitting under the tree doesn't look at you, but he's watching. He always is. You don't resent it. You do the same thing. When your legs give out and all you have left is your gaze. There's a loose board near the threshold. Someone will trip over it. Again. But not today. Today, you step around it. A bird calls, somewhere behind the trees. Too cheerful for this hour. Too hopeful. You almost roll your eyes, but even that's too much. Your hands are shaking slightly now. Not from effort, from remembering how long the day still is. And so you find another task. Because standing still is its own kind of pain. You patch the fence, though it doesn't need it. You sort the stones near the stream. You pretend there's meaning in it. You scrape dried manure from the walkway. Not because it offends, but because someone else did it last time. You hear the sound of fabric being beaten clean. A woman, maybe your cousin, maybe someone who used to be, you don't remember. She's angry at the cloth, or maybe at the world. You respect that. There's no praise, no thanks, no record. Only the soft ache in your back and the knowledge that this duty, this dull, endless tide of unpleasant necessity, is what stitches the day together. Without it, the village would unravel. So you work, and work, and work. Not because you want to, not even because you must, but because not working would mean admitting that nothing improves, and at least this gives you motion. The compost pile is quiet now, still wet, but mixed. The chickens are still ungrateful, but fed. The fence leans, but leans less than it did. You breathe out, long, heavy. The wind shifts. You smell cooking rice, or maybe just the steam of it. Thin, almost imagined. You turn toward it, not quickly, not hopefully, just because it's next, because there's nothing else to do. And behind you, the goat watches still, as if to say, you missed a spot, but you already knew that. And the air folds in around you, quietly, like it always does. The morning's dust has barely settled before their laughter begins. Faint at first, then springing into life like seeds desperate for rain. You pause in your task, shoulders still bent, hands half lifted off the shovel's handle, listening as the sound blossoms and fractures across the yard. The energy of unspent youth presses against the quiet stillness you've carried since dawn, reminding you how old you've become, how worn, and how something inside you aches at hearing them. They run barefoot, their small feet naked against earth hard-packed by seasons of plowing and cartwheels and spilled rice. There is no shame in their motion, only the need to move, as if movement alone could fill the rumble in their bellies. You feel both envy and sorrow. Envy for the freedom in their limbs, sorrow for the emptiness behind their ribs, visible in the curve of their waists, the hollows at their collarbones, the way their cheekbones stand sharper than the clans women taught should ever be. They carry too much energy and too little to sustain it. You turn back to what you were doing. stacking worn hoops from last year's barrel repairs, and press your hands into the age-softened wood. You remember the blister that formed there, the one you ignored until flesh peeled and bubbled beneath dried resin. Time has passed, but the memory still curls like steam when your palms press down. You let your eyes drift back to the children, tracing their dance. A circle of bodies colliding, leaping, tumbling, their voices thread-thin but persistent, like the scent of miso soup meant to fill them, but never quite arriving. One child stumbles, unbalancing into the others, and for a moment everything halts. Breath, motion, heat. You imagine the ache of their palms when they land on the dust, patched through trousers scraping against abrasion. But as quickly as it came, the stillness breaks, and the circle resumes with renewed vigor, as if the stumble gave it shape, purpose. You watch their eyes, bright as broken light, desperate as hope. You step toward them because you cannot help yourself, not to speak, not to stop them, only to witness. You sense that something in their motion demands to be seen. A statement, a refusal of stillness, a challenge issued to the weight pressing on all of you. It unsettles you, this fierce insistence, because it asks a question you won't ask yourself. What remains when motion fails? You draw a breath and exhale slow. Dust drifts in the air, stirred by movement, by laughter, by unspoken tension. A sound drifts, soft, ragged, from the doorway behind you. The sibling, belly pressed close to the plank, muttering in rhythm with each shift of lumber and joint. You close your eyes, hear the echo. One of the children grabs a dried leaf and tosses it, then catches it again with both hands, fingertips skimming. The leaf rests in their palm like a compromise, small, insignificant, but enough. They hold it, examine it, drop it again into the dust. Another child picks it up, repeats the pattern, and still they laugh. You step closer. You kneel in the dirt, careful not to draw attention, but close enough to feel the heat rising from stone and bark and parched grass. The child twirls again, foot brushing against another's ankle. They yelp, not in pain, but in surprise. The surprise yields another laugh, though breathless. Their lungs, empty of real sustenance, find fuel in the traction of dust and shared bodies. You let your hands rest on your knees, letting the wood rest, the day continue. The wind rustles overhead, soft in comparison to the children's chorus. Somewhere behind you the goat sighs, a low, brittle sound. You hear it more than you see it, like you do almost everything now. You remember when the world moved like a song, when each hour had a lyric, a moment of shape and purpose. Now, time is a slow stream of dust and muscle memory. But the children move as though they could shift the earth, split it open, and find water buried deep. And perhaps they could. Perhaps in the echo of their energy lies the promise of rain. You lean forward, head low. A thought flutters in your chest. You could offer them something. Not food. They know there's none. Not new shoes. They know there's none. But maybe a moment of notice. Maybe an acknowledgement of their movement, their need. You inch your hand into your robe pocket. Your fingers close around a small dried root. A morsel you saved, meant for yourself yesterday, now shrunk and gray in exposure. You hold it, consider, then slip the root back. No need to waste it. It might feed you, and you need strength to do what must still be done. As if sensing you, a child turns that way, raising eyes that ask something. You don't speak. No need, just a glance, perhaps recognition. A pause. Then they return to the dance, and the energy surges again, pushing out of their bodies so fast they leave behind a rough light. Your chest tightens. The ache is there again, the one that says, hunger knows no season. You understand it not only because you feel it in your belly, but because it lives in your bones, your memory, the creak of your back, the ache in your shoulders. You stand. Dust puffs at your boots. You feel too old to stand like this, too young to let it be enough. You step away, but not too far. You step into the path so you're close, but not close enough to fall in. The children break. The circle shimmers and dissolves as they scamper off toward chores. Water to carry, weeds to pull, something to fetch. Their motion contains urgency, something to be done before motion becomes impossible. They rip the tension from the day and carry it into tasks you cannot see. Their energy transforms necessity into movement, and you almost envy them again. You breathe in the trail they leave, the layer of dust and breath and small, rough prayers. You twitch where you stand. The itch is there, beneath your ribs, between your toes, behind your teeth. You shift your hand to it, almost to scratch, but stiffen. You don't dare give it that much attention. Letting your thoughts linger can lead to motion, which can lead to notice, which can lead to mistakes. Instead, you steady yourself on a broken rake, knuckles white against the handle. You think of tomorrow's chores, of the fields waiting beyond the yard, of the water that seems thinner each season, of the goat that follows you wherever you go now, eyes bright, breath heavy, of the root you did not give away, of the ache that curls in your chest and will not rest. A breeze arrives, softly, but it carries fresh dust. The children are gone now. Only their echo remains, and you sense it still. Movement lodged in the air around your heart, rattling your bones like a small wind. You draw a breath, then another. Then you sit, lowering yourself onto the log behind you, the one you patched yesterday, but still won't hold for long. The wood groans beneath your weight. You cradle the rake across your lap. You listen to your own breathing, faint and strained. You feel your heartbeat, steady and slow. It says, "I endure long enough." The clouds shift above, almost without notice. The sun eases its glare, making the yard's old shapes softer. Shadows gather along the fence line. The day's heat recedes another inch. It is a relief, but also a promise. There is still more to come. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you travel back to a memory so quiet it nearly escapes you. A child, your child perhaps, running, breath wild, heart open, feet pounding into the earth with so much faith that the earth raised its surface to meet them. You feel the echo of that moment in your chest, a soft glow underneath the ache. You hold it, like something precious and fragile. Then the sound arrives again, footsteps at the gate, someone coming home. Evening tasks, fresh work, the rustle of cloth, the goat lowing, the sibling muttering, the neighbor coughing, all registering quietly now, like soft layers of cloth draped over your chest. You open your eyes. The children are returning, laden with tasks, a bucket of herbs, a coil of rope, a single egg held carefully in cupped hands. Their eyes are calmer now, filled with purpose rather than flight. They pass by you. One looks at the rake in your lap. You hand it to them without speaking. Their fingers close around the handle. You step aside. They move on, together, and separate. The circle rebuilds itself, more subdued, softer. You follow at a distance. Leave at a distance. It thins, then fades. At the edge of your hearing, the goat exhaled again, refreshed, patient. And you stand alone in the yard, older now, quieter, still aching, but grounded in this simple witness. That energy and hunger can live together. That motion and lack can coexist. That to watch without intervening is sometimes the greatest gift. The sun folds into dusk. A single cicada begins its evening cry, steady, ancient. You close your eyes, feeling reality settle. The ache you carry, the breathing you share, the children's footfalls echoing in memory, and beneath it all, the quiet pulse of endurance. The weight of the air has not lifted. It never does. It only shifts, from the burden of labor to the pressure of presence. Somewhere behind you, a sandal scuffs against the ground. Not hurried, not hesitant, just watching. You don't turn to look. You've learned not to. The soil beneath your knees is dry, cracked into thin veins of fatigue, echoing your own. Your hands dig without urgency, without hope of finding anything more than another root that won't grow properly. The sun has moved, but the sweat remains, like a quiet reprimand. You're not doing enough. You never are. A silence thicker than shade stretches across the field. It hums at the edge of your hearing. Not sound exactly, but awareness, like being inside a held breath. You know it before you see him. The shape of authority doesn't need introduction. It introduces itself through posture, through silence, through the creak of cleaner robes than anyone has earned in this village. The tax collector does not knock. He does not bow. He arrives with the certainty of the inevitable. His shadow is longer than his presence. You lift your eyes, but only halfway, just enough to know it's him, just enough to brace your spine against the way your body instinctively wants to shrink. He does not speak to you directly. He speaks to the field, to the space you occupy. He tallies nothing, yet everything is counted. Your harvest is not questioned. It is assumed insufficient. Your effort is not weighed. It is considered untrustworthy. You are not a person. You are a resource, a risk. The pouch he carries is soft and empty. It will not remain that way. You nod, not out of agreement, but to mark the moment where compliance becomes routine. A line drawn not with ink, but with the wear of countless bows and silent transactions. You offer rice. Not enough, but more than you can spare. He accepts it without thanks, because to thank is to admit you took something. And he did. He walks away slower than he arrived, purposefully, as if to make sure his back is never unseen. You don't rise, not yet. You let the silence settle again. Let it coat your skin like dust. Let the moment become part of the field. Later, you'll hear a cough from the neighbor's house, the one whose thatch roof leaks just enough to justify pity, but not enough to protect them from inspection. You'll hear them murmur about missed quotas, about late offerings to the shrine, about someone being summoned to the Lord's estate for reasons that were never explained. You'll pretend not to listen. They'll pretend not to speak. Everyone is very good at pretending. The monk comes next. Not today, but eventually. He brings incense and reminders, both of which make your nose itch. He speaks of duty, of harmony, of spiritual debts that you cannot measure but must somehow repay. His eyes are not cruel, but they are distant, like he lives half in this world and half in a better one where his meals are regular and his mat is softer. You bow. You always bow. You offer dried fish, weak tea, a bowl of miso that you would have shared with your sibling. You do not speak during his blessings, not because you are reverent, but because reverence has been mistaken for survival so many times that the two are now the same. He places a paper charm above your door. It flutters when the wind sighs. It does nothing else. Once, when you were younger and too hungry to be afraid, you asked why the monk's sandals left no mud while yours were always heavy with it. He smiled in a way that felt like both answer and reprimand. You never asked again. The Lord's messenger arrives less often, but when he does, the village exhales in broken pieces. His horse is too clean, his voice too loud. He carries news that no one asked for and orders that everyone expected. Someone will be conscripted. Someone will be relocated. A structure must be built. A field must be cleared. A path must be widened. Not for you, of course. For them. For the feet that matter. You listen. You nod. You do not speak, because your voice was not invited. After he leaves, the old woman across the path leans on her cane and mutters about the last time a message came, about the boy who never returned, about the stones that were taken from her wall and used to line a garden she'll never see. Her voice is soft, but sharp, like a wind that knows where your bones are weakest. You keep your eyes on your work. You feel the presence of her words behind your neck, the same way you feel the eyes of the Lord, the monk, the tax collector, all of them watching even when they are nowhere near. At night, you dream of doors that open without bowing, of footsteps that do not pause to judge. But morning always returns, and so do the eyes. Even when they aren't there, they are. In the way you scrub your feet before stepping into the shared quarters. In the way you arrange the bowls with quiet precision. In the way you teach the children not to look too long at anyone with cleaner sleeves. The eyes have trained you well. The goat, curled in the corner of the longhouse, snorts with quiet disapproval. She watches too, but differently, with the kind of gaze that sees everything and cares for none of it. You envy her detachment. You envy her sense of belonging. No one taxes the goat. No one expects the goat to bow. Your sibling murmurs in their sleep, a sound like apology, or maybe hunger, or maybe just breath. You shift your weight on the tatami, rough and uneven, patched with straw that pokes your shoulder just enough to make rest reluctant. The ceiling watches too. Its beams creak with every change in wind, as if noting your every movement. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to soften the shape of the world, to let the eyes fade into shadows, to let your breath become smaller, quieter, safer. You remember the monk's charm, still fluttering above the door. It sways again, almost imperceptibly, and beneath it all, a silence gathers, thick as mist, still as judgment, deep as an unspoken fear, and you lie there, breathing it in, until the only thing left is the sound of your heart watching you back. The silence after authority leaves is never relief. Not really. It's more like the sound of something coiled loosening just enough to twitch. You feel it in your ribs, not the absence of tension, but the space where tension used to be. A stillness that isn't calm, just tired. You press your fingers against your thigh and feel the shallow ache of the day's crouching. Your knees have started clicking like old wooden buckets, no matter how slowly you rise. You stretch without standing, curling your spine like a reed bending toward dusk, not because it wants to, but because it has learned that it must. Evening is the softest hour and still the hardest. It slips in without ceremony, dimming the edges of the field before your hands are ready to stop. The sky changes first, quietly bleeding its color into something muddier, softer, like ink soaked too long in damp paper. You notice only because it touches your hands differently. Less heat, more memory. There's no bell to mark the end of labor, just the way everyone slows at once, a shared rhythm of resignation. You hear the distant scrape of tools being leaned against walls, the shuffling of straw sandals dragging across dirt like tired sighs. No one calls it a day. It just fades into one. You walk back to the house, if you can call it that today. Some days it feels more like a box for storing bodies. Some days it feels like the only thing keeping you from becoming dust too soon. Your feet trace familiar patches of hardened soil. Each step lands in a place it has landed before. Each rhythm is the same, save for the new twinge in your left ankle, the one you don't remember earning. Pain doesn't announce its arrival anymore. It just arrives. Like a guest you're too tired to greet properly. The longhouse breathes in shadows now. They stretch from the eaves like slow-moving creatures, curling beneath the woven mats and across the worn wood like they're seeking warmth of their own. You know the feeling. Inside, the air is thicker, not warmer, but close. The scent of damp wood and aging rice swirls lazily in the low light. The fire hasn't been lit yet. It's too early for that. Or too late. You're never sure anymore. Someone has placed a bowl by the mat. It's small. You don't need to check it to know it's more water than broth. Probably warmed over too many times, carrying the memory of miso more than the taste. But it's there. And it's yours. And that's enough. You lower yourself slowly, quietly, like you don't want to wake the floor. The rat beneath the wall scratches once. just enough to remind you that he is also here, that he too waits for the light to die before claiming his share. You respect his patience. He seems to respect yours. Your sibling stirs on the mat beside yours, the one you sometimes share when the wind claws through the cracks in the wood. They don't speak, just shift. A kind of movement that says, "I'm still here, but only just." You offer them the bowl without looking. They'll take a sip, then pass it back. The ritual never changes, only the depth of the hollow in your stomach. Outside, a child laughs. Just once, short, thin. It cuts through the quiet like a reed flute out of tune. You want to be annoyed, but it's too late for that. And truthfully, it reminds you of a time when laughter wasn't rare or costly. You stare at the crack between the door frame and the wall. Watch as the last golden light filters in. It hits the dust like it's trying to remember something beautiful. It fails, but at least it tries. In the corner, the goat shifts. Her eyes gleam in the dark. Not afraid, just ancient. She always looks like she knows something. You've stopped wondering what. Maybe she knows which night the roof will finally collapse. Maybe she knows how much rice was really taken by the tax man. Maybe she knows who dreamt what last night. You don't ask. She wouldn't answer. Dinner isn't a meal. It's a pause. A ritual of swallowing before the hunger fully realizes it hasn't been satisfied. You eat slowly, not because of taste, but to stretch the illusion. If you chew long enough, maybe your stomach will forget to complain. It doesn't. Afterward, someone outside sweeps a courtyard that's mostly mud. You hear the straw bristles rasp against stone, wet and stubborn. It's not about cleaning. It's about doing something. Anything. Because standing still invites thoughts. And thoughts are more dangerous than cold. The sun is gone now. The sky is not black yet, just smeared, like charcoal rubbed against cloth. You feel it settle against your skin. The kind of darkness that doesn't press down, but pulls outward. Like it's trying to take something from you. One breath at a time. You rise to adjust the mat. The straw pokes like dry needles through the thin cloth. You turn it. Not because it helps, but because it makes you feel like you've done something. Small comforts are still comforts. The neighbor coughs, twice. A wet sound, heavy, familiar. You imagine her wrapped in too many layers that still aren't enough. She doesn't light her lamp anymore. The oil ran out weeks ago, or months. You've lost track. You wonder if she still counts her regrets. Yours are small, but steady. The words you didn't say to your father before he stopped answering. The seeds you planted too close together. The sweet potato you dropped and didn't pick up, because it was easier to walk away than cry over one more loss. None of them matter now, but they return anyway. Regrets do that. They bloom at dusk, like weeds that wait for the quiet. The silence settles again, thicker now, heavier. You don't speak. No one does. The fire finally breathes to life. Its light is soft, orange, flickering like a memory someone tried to forget. You watch it without watching, letting it blur your vision until everything looks less real, less urgent, less here. The goat makes a low sound, not a complaint, not a call, just a sound, like she knows the day is ending and wants it to know she noticed. You lie back, slowly, carefully. The mat is no more comfortable than it was yesterday, but your body has learned to pretend. The shadows have gathered in the corners. You no longer fear them. You've known them too long. They do not judge. They do not take. They simply wait. And in that waiting, they become familiar. Your breath is slow, measured. You hold it for a moment, then let it go. The way one lets go of a name they can no longer say aloud. The way you release a hope you no longer expect to see returned. Outside, the wind shifts. It carries the scent of rice husks and old water. It carries the silence of a world that keeps turning, even when no one has the strength to follow. and as the fire dies into a soft, red glow, you drift with the shadows, wrapped in warmth you didn't earn, curled beside a goat that watches, beneath a roof that forgets your name, waiting for nothing and everything to pass. The floorboards creak under your knees as you scrub, not out of surprise or protest, but from weary repetition. The same groan at the same pressure point, just left of the corner where ash always seems to settle. Your fingers, wrapped in cloth more rag than glove, smear grit into the grain before lifting it away again, only for more to drift down. A slow rain of dust from above, from the rafters, from the ceiling you cannot reach, from the weight of the world itself. There is no end to it. You know this. You've always known this. But knowing doesn't stop you from trying. The water in the bucket has turned, again. What was once cold, clear, and borrowed from the stream this morning is now the color of weak tea, only without warmth or purpose. You dip the cloth in anyway, watch the swirl of sediment rise and settle again like it's breathing, like even filth is tired. You wipe down the bench by the wall, the one the older men sit on after long days in the fields, their bodies damp and their talk low. You scrub the edge where elbows rest and flakes of skin and salt have accumulated, a soft gray crust that speaks of years, not hours. You scrub and scrub, but the wood never changes. It stays stained and worn, the same dark smudges reappearing the moment your back is turned, as though the wood is grieving and cannot forget. Behind you, someone exhales through their nose. Maybe it's your sister. Maybe it's the ghost of a sister you once had. It's hard to tell the difference these days. Breath and memory both hover near your ears and vanish before you can ask them to stay. The room smells of wet straw and foot rot, a scent so common it doesn't even offend you anymore. It just exists, like wind, like hunger, like the sound of the rat beneath the floorboard dragging something, a piece of rice perhaps, or a toe. You don't look. You don't have to. You know it's there, always working, always hungry, always cleaner than you despite the filth. The hearth is empty now, just a black mouth yawning in the center of the room. You cleaned it this morning, and again after the midday meal, if a cup of thin millet porridge can be called a meal. Still, soot reappears. Ash drifts back in. Smoke residue paints the wall above in that same teardrop shape, like the building itself is weeping. A neighbor coughs through the wall, not violently, not theatrically, just a slow, wet thing that reminds you they still breathe. You pause for a moment, pressing the rag to your knee, letting your spine curve and your shoulders sag. You wonder, in that silent droop of motion, if their walls are any cleaner. You know they're not. No one's are. Cleanliness is not a condition here. It's a gesture, like bowing to a lord who hasn't fed you, polite, ritualized, and ultimately meaningless. You move to the doorway, wiping along the wooden threshold where sandals drag in dirt and bits of the outside world. Pine needles, crushed shell, a smear of something once alive. The door itself has no handle, just a push and pull with your palm, and you polish that spot as well, as if your skin hasn't already done enough to it over the years. The cloth dries out again. You dip it, wring it, dip it again. The water no longer swirls. It just sits, heavy and tired, like you. The children, someone's children, they're all communal by now, have left sticky handprints along the wall. You don't even scold them anymore. You just wipe them off slowly, feeling the stickiness transfer from the wood to your hands, to your face, to your mind. There's a sweetness to the residue, faint, like persimmon or spoiled barley. You try not to think about it. Your knees have gone numb. You do not move. The numbness is a kindness. When it fades, your bones will burn and throb like they've been lit from inside by a fire that offers no warmth. Behind you, someone shifts. The sibling who no longer speaks unless prompted, their movements muffled by thick fabric and thicker silence. You hear the rustle of their sleeves, the faint scrape of heel across packed earth. You do not look. If you do, they might ask to help. If they ask, you might say yes. And if they do help, the water will get dirtier twice as fast. Better not. You drag the bucket slowly to the rear corner of the room, where dust gathers no matter how often it's swept. The floor here is uneven, warped by rain and rodents, softened by years of spilled soup and forgotten sorrow. You bend to wipe it anyway, feeling the ache deepen along your spine like a knot that no sleep can untie. Cleaning here is not about improving anything. It is about making the illusion last. If the walls are wiped, if the mat is shaken, if the sandals are aligned, then maybe, just maybe, you can pretend for a moment that you have control over something. That the rot in the rice barrel isn't your fault. That the hole in the roof is not getting wider. That the smell is not seeping into your skin. A draft moves through the room. It smells of soil and smoke and something dying. It is neither better nor worse than what came before. You rise to your feet slowly, the way old people do, even though your body is still young, or was once. The act of standing is a negotiation now. One knee, then the other, then a groan through clenched teeth and a hand braced on the wall. The world tilts. You let it. The bucket is nearly empty, sloshing a dark soup of regret and resignation. You carry it outside. The light has faded, but not completely. The evening lays soft over the village, a damp blanket that forgets to warm. Chickens mutter in their coop. Somewhere nearby, the old man who lost his hearing talks to himself, or maybe to the spirits that linger by the well. You dump the water into the weeds, watching it soak into the earth that will never be clean either. The soil here drinks anything: water, blood, tears, old soup. It never changes, just swells and sinks and swallows. The sky turns the color of bruised plum. Someone calls out for their child in the distance. Someone else coughs again. The goat, as always, watches you from its tether with the same expression it always has, somewhere between disdain and enlightenment. You go back inside. There's more to do. There's always more to do. And nothing ever gets clean. Not really. You wipe the rim of the clay water jug. You sweep the lint from the corners. You fold the damp cloth again and set it down. Your hands smell of wet wood and old rice. You do not mind. You do not remember what else they could smell like. You sit on the edge of the mat, the one that's thinner than it used to be. Your knees crack. Your breath is a little ragged. Someone outside sneezes. The rat beneath the floor settles into whatever dark act it was planning. You rest your elbows on your thighs and stare at the place where the wall meets the floor, a line you've scrubbed too many times. The wood is worn smooth, darkened not by dirt, but by the memory of it. The air holds still. The cloth, still damp, begins to chill in the breeze. You close your eyes, and the sound of water dripping in the bucket, slow, irregular, stubborn, follows you into the dark. The fire is down to embers again, but not out. It never fully dies, though sometimes you think it wants to. Its glow is weak and red, like the inside of a tired eye, blinking slowly in the dusk of the hearth. The heat it gives is barely enough to kiss your fingers, let alone warm your bones. Still, you sit close. You've learned to take what little warmth there is and pretend it's enough. The air smells of smoke and boiled millet. Not fresh millet, not even particularly warm, just millet. The kind that clumps at the bottom of a wooden bowl and remembers better meals from days that never quite arrive. It's a familiar scent and not altogether unwelcome. It means food. It means the day is folding itself inward. It means people will sit down soon, quietly, in the half-light, and pretend to be full. Your hands ache from the cold water you use to wash them. You know it hardly matters. Nothing ever feels clean. Still, the ritual helps. Scrub once. Rinse once. dry with the cloth that never truly dries. The cloth smells of the last meal, and the one before that, and the rain that wouldn't stop 3 days ago. Everything in this place smells of old intentions. You sit on the worn mat where you always sit, the edge spot near the slanted beam where your shoulder brushes rough wood if you lean too far left. It's not the best place, but it's yours. The person to your right sighs, a sibling, or someone like one, their breath soft and slow like a broom sweeping dust in a dream. They don't speak. They rarely do at this hour. No one really talks during meals. Not properly. Not with words that carry. There are glances, gestures, the polite clink of a wooden spoon against a lacquered bowl, the occasional cough, the hiss of someone shifting too quickly on a reed mat and realizing their legs are numb. This is the sound of dinner. Not conversation. Just presence. Just the quiet announcement that we are here. We are eating. We are still alive. A ladle dips into a pot that has boiled too long. The broth is pale, thin, reluctant. A few shreds of turnip swim inside, pretending to be enough. You've eaten this exact soup for weeks, and you will eat it again. The taste is almost a memory before it touches your tongue. The bowl in your hands is smooth and familiar. Its rim is chipped slightly, but that makes it easier to hold without slipping. Your thumb fits the edge where the glaze wore off. It's strange the things that comfort you. A worn bowl, a known draft, a creak in the ceiling you've named and cursed, but now cannot sleep without. You sip slowly. The heat hits your lips first, then your teeth, then somewhere in your chest that hasn't felt warm since early spring. You close your eyes for just a moment, not because it's good, but because it's food. And food is not to be rushed. Not here. Not when the next full meal might be 2 sunsets away. Across the room, someone slurps too loudly. An elder glares. No one says a word. The slurping continues, just quieter. The sound of compromise. Your own spoon hesitates midair. You listen to the room, the crackle of the fire, the slow chew of someone with fewer teeth than memory, the swallow of broth, a small cough, a sigh. Silence folds over the house like a blanket that doesn't reach the feet. Not enough, but what you have. The goat outside bleats once, just once, and then goes back to knowing whatever it knows. The rat beneath the floor is unusually quiet tonight, perhaps also waiting for leftovers, perhaps already full from what you didn't know you dropped yesterday. You chew a slice of pickled radish, sharp, salty, slightly bitter. It is not your favorite, but it does not need to be. It crunches in your mouth, a rare interruption in the softness of everything else. For a moment, it reminds you of something brighter. Summer, perhaps. A festival you never attended. A market stall your feet passed by, but your stomach never entered. The light fades slowly. It always does. Shadows stretch themselves across the floor, climbing over bowls, mats, and bare ankles. You watch the way the light curves around your cousin's fingers as they lift a spoon to their mouth. The knuckles are too sharp, the nails chewed short. The fingers of someone who never learned rest. Someone refills the pot with water, though everyone knows the broth is gone. It's a gesture, an echo of abundance, hollow but necessary. You do not ask for more. No one does. Want is something you learned to silence long ago, like a song you no longer hum because it always made your mother cry. A child drops a spoon. It clatters, loud in the hush. The room does not scold, only pauses, then continues. Even noise gets tired here. You feel the weight of the day in your shoulders, the way your back curves inwards now, like the house itself, old, bowed, determined to stand, even if it creaks in protest with every gust of wind. You wonder if the wood feels the cold too. You imagine it does. There is a small pile of pickles on a shared plate. One of the elder women eyes them, but doesn't move. You don't either. The pickles will remain untouched, preserved by mutual politeness and the fear of appearing greedy. They will be wrapped and saved for someone who needs them more. No one will say who that is. The silence thickens, not heavy, but steady, like damp fabric. You breathe it in. It tastes like steam and ash in the inside of your own mouth. It fills the spaces between you and the others. It is not unfriendly, just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask for anything but your breath. Outside, the sky is dark now. Someone lights a tiny flame in a cup of oil. It flickers, soft and nervous. The glow dances on the walls, making the dust look like stars that never found their way outside. You think of how many nights have looked like this. Hundreds, maybe more, all folding into each other like rice in a basket. Warm for a while, then forgotten. You sip the last of your broth. It is barely more than warmth now, but it slides down your throat like a memory you can keep, just for tonight. The bowls are empty, not scraped clean. There's never that much, but enough to say that the meal has passed through you. Enough to say that this part of the day is done. You rest your hands on your knees, palms dry, skin cracked where the cold has bitten too often. The cracks sting, but not sharply. A dull ache, the kind that never leaves, just moves around. The fire is almost gone. A cousin leans forward to stir it, but the coals are stubborn. They sigh instead. Everyone does. It's the kind of sigh that isn't about anything in particular, just the shape your mouth makes when the day finally lets go. The bowls are stacked quietly. The spoons are wiped, not washed. The pot is moved aside. No words are said, just gestures, hands that know what to do, not because they were told, but because they've done it every day since their hands were small enough to forget how. You remain seated a little longer. The warmth on the mat beneath you has started to fade. Your body wants to move, but not yet. There is something sacred about these last few minutes, the stillness after the meal, when everyone is too tired to pretend and too full of emptiness to speak. You glance at the others. Their faces are pale in the flickering light, eyes half closed, mouths resting, not smiling, just not frowning, which is enough most nights. Your fingers find a splinter in the beam again. You press against it. It doesn't hurt. You just need to feel something small and real, something that will still be here tomorrow, even if the rice is not. The silence lingers like breath on old wood. You close your eyes, not to sleep yet, just to listen better. A creak, a shuffle, a sigh, a breath, and then the flicker of the flame leaning toward sleep, just like the rest of you. The silence that followed the last shared meal has not lifted. It lingers now, like steam that never fully rises, clinging to the thatch above you, curling inside your sleeves, settling at the back of your throat, where words used to gather, but no longer bother. You sit still on your mat, fingers folded beneath the folds of your robe, eyes half closed, though not yet surrendered. The fire has been fed its last offering of splintered pine. What remains glows like an old memory, warm but distant. You don't tend it now. There is no more wood to give it, and no more energy to search for any. What is left will have to be enough. What is left always has to be enough. Your back aches from the day's labor, but aching is not new nor noteworthy. The ache is a constant, like the weight of your name, or the way your legs remember the shape of squatting. You do not stretch. You do not move. You simply exist in the growing cold as others begin to draw near. It starts with a shift, the gentle rustle of cloth against cloth. Someone pulls closer, not out of affection, but the necessity of heat. Another follows, quietly. A third body rolls nearer, groaning softly in sleep. You do not speak. No one does. This is not a gathering of comfort. It is a reassembly of survival. The mats are thin. The walls are thinner. The wind, bolder by the hour, finds every crack in the timber and makes itself at home. It speaks in a voice older than yours, sharper than your bones. You pull your sleeves tighter, but they are already tight. There is nowhere else for the warmth to go except inwards, towards the fragile fire of your own breath. Beside you, the child with the runny nose shifts. His elbow brushes your ribs. He does not apologize. He doesn't need to. Apologies are reserved for things you could have changed, and no one can change the cold. You let the elbow stay there, pressing gently like a stone warmed by the sun. Not pleasant, but better than empty space. Another shape joins the heap, heavier, slower, muttering something only half in this world. It might be your cousin, or your brother's friend who stopped going home when his roof gave in. It doesn't matter. They are warm. That is what matters. The goat is somewhere in the corner. You don't see it, but you hear the way it shifts, the soft thud of its hooves on beaten earth, the faint exhale that always sounds like knowing. The goat, more than anyone, has mastered this choreography of closeness. It never wastes a breath. It never complains. You envy the goat sometimes. You settle down slowly, bending yourself to fit the spaces made by others. An arm here, a shoulder there, a back pressing against your spine like a misplaced rock. No one fits perfectly. Everyone fits just enough. The room smells of unwashed feet, of hair that hasn't felt water in days, of breath that carries too much rice and not enough teeth. The air is thick, and yet it leaks out at the corners, pulled by wind and fate. You breathe through your sleeve and try not to mind. A neighbor coughs again, the same one from earlier. It rattles in his chest like beans in a jar. You hope it's nothing, but you know better. Nothing has been just nothing for a long time. Illness travels as easily as breath in a room like this, but there is nowhere else to go. You cannot leave the warmth of bodies for the gamble of distance. You close your eyes and pretend you did not hear. The cold does not bite. Not yet. It creeps. It slides into the space behind your ears, nestles between your toes, wraps itself around your ankles like a forgotten child. You know that later it will be sharper. But for now, it is the kind of cold that whispers before it screams. Someone's foot finds your shin. It is colder than yours. You flinch slightly but do not move away. You trade warmth like this, unevenly, awkwardly, without negotiation. What you give tonight might return tomorrow. Or not. You do it anyway. The ceiling creaks softly. The rat beneath the floor scratches, then pauses. It always pauses, as if listening to make sure you are listening too. Then it resumes, steady, confident. It has no reason to fear you. You are slower than it is. You are slower than everything. The child beside you sneezes. You feel the mist of it more than you hear it. It is absorbed by the blanket someone found 2 winters ago and still refuses to share properly. You pull a corner of it over your shoulder and receive a knee in your ribs in exchange. No one says a word. The fire offers its final flicker, then folds inward like a dying breath. The darkness becomes whole. You do not fear it. Darkness is the one thing that has never tried to leave you. In the distance, a dog howls. It is not a cry of fear, but a tired announcement, a sound that says, "Yes, I am still here. Yes, it is still cold. No, it has not changed." You murmur something in return, though it is more thought than sound. The dog doesn't need your answer. It knows. You think of warmth in abstract terms. Not fire, not summer, but closeness. The way your mother used to wrap you in her robe when you were very small. The way your sister tucked her feet beneath your thighs on the coldest nights. The way the scent of fermented miso always seemed a little warmer than the taste. Those were different kinds of warmth, lost kinds. You do not search for them anymore. You collect the ones you can. Someone farts, and the quiet is broken just long enough for a ripple of recognition to pass through the bodies like a breeze. No one comments. You've all done worse. You've all heard worse. You shift slightly, finding a pocket of warmth left behind by someone's knee. It is fleeting, but for a moment, it belongs to you. You tuck it into your ribs and let it become part of your breathing. The mat beneath you smells like old straw and mold. It always has. You stopped noticing long ago. Now, it is just what the ground is. A softened version of hard things. A kindness with conditions. The wind grows bolder. The walls groan. A draft slides under your robe like a blade made of breath. You squeeze closer to the nearest body and receive no resistance. You are a puzzle of limbs and compromises now. One warmth stitched together by too many shivers. The goat exhales again. A hand, maybe a child's, finds your wrist and holds it for a moment. Not tightly, not affectionately, just there. A silent understanding that the night is long and the cold is clever. You do not hold back, but you do not squeeze either. You do not sleep yet, but you begin the slow descent. That place between breath and memory. That place where the cold is no longer a fact, but just a part of the dream. You go there, slowly, one shallow exhale at a time, and somewhere in the hush, beneath the mutter of your brother's sleep, beside the cough of the neighbor, under the soft stamping of the goat, the cold waits for its moment. You drift toward it, wrapped not in blankets, but in other people's breath. And just before your thoughts fade completely, you hear the rat again, bold, hungry, unbothered, and feel the child's fingers release your wrist. Only then does the night go completely quiet. Only then does the cold finally settle. The warmth you borrowed from the bodies beside you is thinning now, seeping out into the cold, like steam from a cracked pot. Someone shifts near your back, rustling straw and loosening a thread of warmth you had tucked against your chest like a secret. The floor beneath your mat is hard in the places you've memorized, the knot in the timber near your hip, the sag where the rats tunneled below last autumn. You try not to move. Even small movements let in the cold. The room is a slow breath of shadow, broken by the pale glint of moonlight trickling through the paper-thin wall. You can see the roof beam above your head, always watching. Its edges softened by years of smoke and silence. It's been there longer than your memories, maybe longer than your mother's. It creaks sometimes, not because it's tired. Wood doesn't get tired, but because it remembers things. You lie there, on your back, arms folded against your chest, not out of comfort, but to keep the chill from slipping into your sleeves. The fabric of your tunic smells faintly of damp smoke, with a sour edge like boiled barley left too long. You haven't washed it in days. No one has said anything. No one needs to. There's a shared understanding, like a silent agreement to pretend you're all clean enough. A child murmurs nearby, not in language, but in sleep. The kind of sound that used to mean something when they were small. Now it just means they're still breathing. The goats are quiet tonight. Unusual. You wonder, half dreaming, if they know something you don't. They always seem to. Thoughts trickle in like drops from a cracked roof, one at a time, slow and cold. You think about your father, though you rarely do. Not because you don't miss him, but because it's easier not to notice the shape of the space he left. He was a broad-shouldered man with calloused hands and quiet eyes. He didn't say much. None of them did. You try to remember his voice, but all you get is the sound of him sharpening a blade in the evening, rhythm steady as breathing. You wonder if he had dreams, not the kind you have in sleep. Those are easy and shapeless, full of smoke and nonsense. But the other kind, the ones that tug on you in the middle of work and whisper what if. You wonder if he wanted to leave, or if he just wanted a better hoe. Something with a handle that didn't splinter. Something that didn't blister his palms by the end of spring. Your fingers curl around your own hands, palms rough as bark. The same splinters, the same work, maybe the same dreams. Sometimes, when the nights stretch too long, you think about the ancestors. not in the way the elders tell you to, not with incense and bowed heads, but in the quiet way, like thinking about old friends you never met. You imagine them walking the same earth, stepping over the same stones, grumbling at the same winters. You wonder if they also lay awake like this, staring at the ceiling, feeling the shape of their own smallness pressing in like a second blanket. The wind picks up outside. You can hear it tugging at the corners of the house, like a cat pawing at a mat. The shutters rattle, not enough to wake anyone, just enough to be noticed. The moon is clearer now. You can see its light draped over the beam like a faded cloth, cold and thin. You try to chase a memory, one you only half remember. A festival, maybe. A time when there were lanterns, or rice cakes, or music. You don't remember the details, just the sense of color, and the feeling that, for a few moments, life had stopped hurting. Or maybe it hadn't. Maybe you just didn't mind. You remember laughing. Someone tugging your sleeve. Your mouth sticky with something sweet. The memory ends before it resolves, like all of them do. A thread cut mid-weave. Another person in the room coughs. It's a deep, tired sound, like it came from beneath the floorboards. It fades quickly, but the silence that follows is heavier. You wonder how long they've had that cough. You wonder if anyone else is wondering too, lying still, not speaking. Sleep in this house is not quiet. It's just full of people pretending not to hear each other. You roll slowly to one side, knees drawn toward your chest. The mat beneath you crunches faintly with old straw. The wall is closer this way. Your face nearly touches it. You can smell the old wood, musty, dry, stained with smoke and secrets. You've stared at this patch of wall more nights than you've stared at the stars. It's a familiar sort of nothingness. Your mind wanders again. It always does this drifting. This slow turning through old worries and imagined lives. Sometimes you pretend you're someone else. A monk, maybe, living up in the mountains, eating rice in silence, watching snow fall on stone steps. No neighbors, no taxes, just wind and prayer and soft robes that never itch. You know it's a lie. Even monks go hungry. But it's a better lie than most. Other nights, you imagine you're rich. Not samurai rich, that's too far. Just enough to have warm clothes that match and food that doesn't need to be watered down. You'd sit by a real fire, with a cushion. Maybe even a dog that doesn't bite. You'd give your mother her own space to sleep. You'd let your brother have an extra blanket. You'd eat until your stomach didn't ache. But tonight, even the lies feel thin, like winter broth. A rat scurries under the floor. You feel its motion, not in sound, but in the vibration it leaves behind. Quick, practiced feet. It knows where to step to avoid the loose boards. You almost admire it. It survives, like you do, not with strength, but with stubbornness. Someone murmurs your name in their sleep. It startles you more than it should. You don't answer. You hold your breath until the room swallows the sound again. The name lingers in the air for a moment. Not loud, but somehow weighty. As if your presence has been noticed. As if, for a moment, you matter. And then, nothing. Just the hush of shared breath and the distant creak of the world turning. Your eyelids grow heavy, though you haven't truly done anything today. That's how it works. It's not the tasks that wear you down. It's the weight of knowing you'll do them again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Like grinding rice into paste. It never ends. It just gets quieter. You nestle your fingers beneath your arm, seeking that one patch of warmth that still clings to your skin. Your toes curl together like they're whispering secrets. The wall beside your face smells of old fires and older rain. The thoughts are quieter now. Not gone, they never go, but soft enough to ignore. Somewhere in the dark, the goat exhales. The roof beam above your head sighs again, long and slow. You wonder if it's dreaming too. You let the quiet take you, not into sleep exactly, but into that space before it. That foggy middle place where time has no spine and memory feels like mist. You float there, weightless, with your regrets and your hunger, and the sound of breath not quite your own. And then, just before the world disappears, the house creaks once more, soft, slow, and familiar, like an old friend shifting closer, like something ancient remembering your name, like a story that never really ends. The silence isn't perfect. It never is. There is always something, a breath, a shift, a murmur, lingering in the edges of sleep, the stillness between people who are not quite resting, but not quite waking, a kind of quiet that hums softly, like the space between a heartbeat and the next. This is where you float now, not sleeping, not stirring, just existing, in the soft cradle of exhaustion. Your face is cold. Your toes are colder. The mat below you has long surrendered its warmth. Someone's arm brushes against your side, pulling away with the same slow reluctance you feel in your bones. Their breath is close, rhythmic, slightly wheezy, but alive. You try to convince your limbs not to move. As long as you don't move, the night still owns you. The day hasn't begun. You can pretend there's still time to rest. You can pretend the ache in your shoulders hasn't returned. You can pretend you're not dreading what comes next. But something shifts in the air. Faint, but familiar. A rooster, far off. The thin crow of a bird that doesn't care about your weariness. It calls anyway, as if it's proud to remind you that morning is not a thing you choose. It comes, dragging its dull gray light like a damp cloth over the hills and thatched roofs, over straw mats and open mouths, over blistered feet and furrowed dreams. You listen, eyes still closed, as the house begins to breathe again. Someone coughs, deep from the chest. The same cough that's been echoing through the nights for weeks now. No one speaks of it, but everyone hears it, and everyone pretends not to. The walls are too thin for secrets, but you carry them anyway. The rafters above you creak. The house always creaks before it moves. The wood swells, groans, stretches itself slowly, as if even the building resents the day. You open your eyes just enough to see the pale light leaking through the seams in the wall. Not golden, not soft, just light. The kind that shows every crack in the floor and every speck of dust in the air. You shift your legs. The straw crinkles like dry skin. You sit up slowly because there is no other way. Fast movements in this cold are acts of betrayal. They let in the pain all at once. Your knees resist. Your back complains. But they obey. You're not alone, of course. No one sleeps alone here. There are bodies curled in corners, heads tucked beneath arms, mouths slightly open. Someone is snoring, a low bubbling sound like soup about to boil. You don't know who it is. It doesn't matter. You'll all be moving soon, because that's what happens every morning, whether you want it or not. You rub your hands together, dry and cracked. There's a spot on your left thumb where the skin has split again. You press it gently and wince. It's a familiar sting, like greeting an old friend who never left. The room smells of bodies, not dirty, not clean, just lived in. A mixture of sweat and smoke and the faint sourness of breath that has nowhere else to go. It smells like persistence, like you all existed through the night, and the smell is the proof. In the corner, someone stirs. A blanket, if you can call it that, is pushed aside. The goat snorts once and resumes chewing something that may or may not be food. The rat beneath the floor scratches twice, then retreats. The rhythm of morning has begun. You step outside because you must. The cold hits you like memory, immediate, complete. A wind that finds every gap in your layers and lays claim to your skin. The yard is wet with frost, though there's no snow yet. The sky is colorless, not gray, not blue, just empty. You pull your sleeves down, though they don't reach your wrists. The woodpile is shrinking. Again. You don't remember when you last refilled it. Maybe yesterday. Maybe last week. The days blend. They are all the same shape, just folded differently. You gather a few sticks. Enough to fake a fire. Not enough to stay warm. But then, it was never about staying warm. It's about trying. It's about the act of pretending you might. Inside, the coals in the hearth are not dead, just tired. You kneel and coax them gently, the way you would a child who is pretending to sleep. A breath here, a whisper there. Eventually, a glow. You feed it something dry and broken, like your hopes. The flames catch slowly, reluctantly. A few sparks rise like tiny promises that won't keep. You hold your hands above them, too close, because pain is better than cold. The others are waking now, one by one. The same groans, the same stretching. No words, just movement. Your sister ties her hair back with the same scrap of cloth she always uses. It's more frayed now. Her eyes are still half closed. She doesn't look at you, but you feel her presence like a weight beside your ribs. A pot is filled. The water is cold. The rice is thinner than it should be. But it cooks anyway, because it must. The scent is plain, not unpleasant, but unremarkable. A reminder that this is food because you've decided it is, not because it tastes like anything. You eat in silence. Everyone does. The chew of rice is loud in a room with no conversation. You feel the heat of the bowl in your hands, the steam against your face. You close your eyes between bites, pretending it's more than it is. You take your time, not because you're not hungry, but because you are, and you want it to last. Someone drops a spoon. No one flinches. When the bowl is empty, you set it aside and begin again. The day doesn't wait for your consent. There are clothes to repair, wood to split, soil to turn, even if the ground protests, even if your body does too. There are tools to find, and chores you already hate, and things you cannot avoid. But before you move again, you sit for just a moment longer. You sit with the last warmth of the bowl pressed into your palms. You sit with the sounds of feet brushing the floor, of whispers you don't need to understand, of a breath beside you that is not yours, but feels like it could be. You sit with the faint, low sound of the wind trying to get in. And you know that tomorrow will be the same, that the rooster will call again, that the rat will scratch, that the frost will cling to your doorstep like a warning. But you also know this: you will rise anyway, because morning will come again, whether you want it or not. And somehow, so will you. Even if you do it slowly, even if you do it bitterly, even if you do it aching in every bone, you'll do it. You'll do it again. Because this is what it means to endure. Because the fire must be lit. Because the rice must be boiled. Because the goat must be let out. Because the wind hasn't taken you yet. And because, somewhere between the first crow and the last breath, you are still here.